Hello and welcome to our 2022 GITEC nomination ceremony. My name is Kirsten Patton and I am a business performance consultant over at Dale Carnegie in Tampa Bay, and I will be the MC of today's event. ATARC stands for the Advanced Technology Academic Research Center, and we are a nonprofit that facilitates collaboration between government, industry, and academia in order to accelerate technology modernization initiatives. ATARC provides ongoing opportunities for cross-agency collaboration through on-site interaction, learning, and market research. I am joined today by John Sprague, the GITEC Chair of the Advanced Air Mobility National Campaign Support and Data Control Officer, co-led cybersecurity over at NASA. John, it's really great to have you here today.
Thank you so much. I tried to turn the video on, but it wouldn't go. So I'll just talk, I guess. Thank you so much for all this. Kirsten, thank you so much. Tom Suter, Kim, Maddie, and all the others who've made this possible and continuing the great GITEC tradition of sharing information on what everyone is doing and having awards and for all that great work. Good morning and welcome everybody. So what is GITEC? GITEC is Information Technology Executive Council. GITEC was established back in from a memo, White House memo, back in 1966. It was to provide a forum through which senior government level and industry executives could share, collaborate in an open forum, all the IT ideas, challenges. Back in 2010, GITEC hosted its first GITEC Summit. However, some of you may remember the summits as IPIC, Information Processing Interagency Conference. Those go back even 30 years, and they used to hold them down in Orlando during the spring break time frame. But in early 2014, Tom renamed AMARC to ATARC, as was just mentioned, and within the next year, ATARC expanded that portfolio to include cybersecurity, DevOps, data, analytics, and health IT events. ATARC and GITEC announced their merger back in May 31st in 2018. That brought the two non-profits together. And the legacy of GITEC lives on in ATARC through everything that we do here, plus these annual GITEC Awards ceremonies. Thanks everybody for being here, helping us all, and I look forward to hearing about all these successful projects. Kirsten, thank you so much. Please take it away.
Thank you so much, John. To kick things off, we are going to be hearing from AFWERX Agility Prime, presented by Dash Divakaran, the Senior Manager of Strategic Innovation and Partnerships at AFWERX. Over to you, Dash.
Thank you. Very good morning. Just making sure you can hear me clearly.
Can.
Awesome. A very good morning to everyone. And I would like to apologize for not switching on the camera. I am in a hotel where the network is poor and I want to stay online, so I'm just doing it from my phone. So with that, I would also like to thank ATAC to put together this conference and also this award presentations for the nominations. I like to wish everyone a good luck, and let me just kick it off. So I'm Darshan Divakaran, go by Dash. I'm the Senior Manager for Strategic Innovation and Partnerships for AFWERX, which is an innovation arm for the Air Force. And within the AFWERX program, we have Agility Prime, which is the Air Force's electric vertical takeoff and landing aircraft program, also known as Advanced Air Mobility. Next slide, please. So we are very aware about one of the biggest global threat, which is climate change, and addressing that. What are the major concerns for climate change is greenhouse gas, climate change overall, and even noise. So from an environment perspective, greenhouse gas, climate change, and noise are the biggest concerns that we are facing right now. And aviation doesn't make it easy. It contributes to this challenge. And makes, as per the survey, it is stated that by 2050, the commercial aircraft emissions could triple given the projected growth of passenger air travel and freight. So just to think about it is that there are different modes of transportation, and aviation is one of those where we have aircrafts flying at different altitudes, and these aircrafts emit carbon dioxide, water vapor, which is H2O, and nitrogen oxide, sulfates, and other gases, which affects the climate. And majority of the concerns are not at the highest altitude, but it's at 3,000 feet and above the ground where you have the highest emissions. And this is especially during takeoff and landing and during initial climb and approach. So low altitude, environment, low altitude climate is one of our concerns. And for that, we have to look at innovative technologies, new sources of fuel, also other options for transportation, and which is where next slide. And this is where the Agility Prime program came together. So one of the primary focus for Agility Prime program is to promote innovation in the future of air mobility, and we want to address electric vertical takeoff landing aircrafts as a potential option for low altitude travel. And this is where in 2020, the Agility Prime program was launched. We gave startup companies an opportunity to bring their technology to us and showcase their capability. And this is not for military use case only, but for commercial applications as well. So dual use focus. And the primary focus is commercial, where we want these companies to have commercial viability. And from there, we would identify use cases for the military. But the other main focus here is also to understand that these are new technologies, so they need to be tested. They need to prove their capability, as well as we have to look into other challenges which involves like aircraft certification, airspace integration, supply chain. So this program helped many of the startups in this space, get an opportunity to work with the Air Force subject matter experts, engineers, to show their capability. And from there, we were able to identify the three key focus areas, that is the future of electric revolution, and autonomy, and manufacturing. So key things to look at there is zero emission from these aircrafts, and runway independent operations. So these are vertical takeoff. So we are looking at these aircrafts to be the future of passenger travel, logistics. So anything, and when I say low altitude, is anything from ground to, I would say more from 400 feet to 10,000 feet type of altitude we're looking for these aircrafts. And as I addressed earlier, that is the low altitude emissions are more. And if these vehicles could become a future for travel, they could reduce the carbon footprint in the long run. Next slide. So when we started this program, we decided that the main factor here is that we need to make sure that these companies are successful. So we were able to put together about $7 billion so far in investment towards these companies, and we were able to award many of these companies a contract, and out of which we have about 4 companies that have gone through aircraft certification are now working with FAA to look at commercial certification. So this is a military certification we were able to provide them. So currently these aircrafts are flying in military airspaces, trying and testing their capability. And we are able to understand what are the different use cases for these aircrafts, and also understand the challenges that these aircrafts are going to face, and see how we can help solve this together. So with these aircrafts, other technologies come into place like autonomy, supply chain, and we're also looking at removing in the area of electric, and also in the future hydrogen capability for fuel, and more so far. So with that, we have been able to successfully help these companies have commercial viability. And just this morning, we saw in the news that one of the companies has partnered, Archer has partnered with an airline to basically start routes in the Manhattan area from a specific location to the airport. So we are seeing this technology, this mode of transportation being now integrated into state efforts. So in the next couple of years, we'll see more of this. Next slide. And to just summarize our interest with these aircrafts, we have put 3 areas of focus. One is we are looking at 3 to 8 passenger aircrafts. 3 to 8 passenger capability aircraft. The second is 1 to 2 passenger capability or equivalent weight. And the third one is for logistics purposes, which is 500 pounds and above. So there are different categories of these aircrafts, and you can see from the graph the different type of companies we were able to work with. So we are excited about this, and we are hoping that with these aircrafts, we will be able to at least contribute to helping the climate change in the long run. So yes, and that's pretty much my last slide. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dash. That was wonderful. Next up, we have DIU acquisition team presented by Teresa Temayori, the Director of Acquisition within the Defense Innovation Unit and the Office of the Undersecretary of Defense for Research and Engineering at the United States Department of Defense. Over to you, Teresa.
Great. Thank you so much for having me. I am not sure if I am able to present my slides. Oh, here we go.
I just saw them a second ago. Oh, maybe that was the placeholder, actually.
Yeah, here, I found it. Thank you. All right. Are you folks able to see the slides?
Yes, it's just not in full present mode yet.
Okay. All right. How was that?
Perfect.
Perfect. Awesome. Thank you so much. So thank you so much to the GITEC team for having me and for the opportunity to share a little bit about DIU's Immersive Commercial Acquisition Program. Before I get started, I'd like to explain a little bit about the Defense Innovation Unit, what we do and how we execute projects. I really think that this is important to help provide a backdrop to help you understand why sharing our know-how and expertise in these flexible acquisition methods is really so important and is really needed across the Department of Defense. So the Defense Innovation Unit is a fast-moving DoD organization focused exclusively on leveraging commercial technologies to solve national security problems. We accelerate the adoption of commercial technology, we transform military capacity and capabilities, and we strengthen the national security innovation base. A few key differentiators between our organization and some of the other acquisition or innovation organizations out there is really first and foremost our unique project lifecycle. We solicit problem statements, so we do not solicit requirements or spec documents or anything like that. And that's really because of the specific market area that we are targeting. We're targeting these commercial companies who already know how to do these technologies very well. So we don't necessarily have to tell them or specify how to do business. We also utilize flexible acquisition authorities, specifically the other transaction authority, which really provides us flexibility and allows us to work more in line with commercial terms. In addition to that, we are a joint force with a mandate to scale across the DoD. And finally, we have a broad and deep integration into key tech ecosystems. The Defense Innovation Unit, we facilitate prototype projects between the Department of Defense and commercial companies. For our DoD partners, what we provide is access to leading commercial technologies. We really have a deep know-how in how the commercial market works. And because of our streamlined acquisition process, we are really able to access a vendor base that is traditionally not interested in doing business with the government. For our commercial companies, what we provide is a simpler acquisition process and a lower barrier to entry. Some of you may be asking, like, why commercial? Why does DIU focus solely on commercial technologies? And this is really because 11 out of the 14 defense modernization priorities are actually in commercial technology areas. And these technologies are in areas where the commercial sector leads in research and development. So in these specific tech areas, the commercial market is driving innovation. They're driving where these technologies are going. And honestly, because of this, we really need to shift the way that the Defense Department and the federal government writ large does business. We need to learn how to be better business partners with government, with industry, I'm sorry, and really to learn to speak commercial. And honestly, that's really why we developed the immersive commercial acquisition program, was to really address that gap in understanding and to help both the government and to be better business partners with industry. So the immersive commercial acquisition program is a program that we launched with the Defense Acquisition University. And the goal of the program is to train contracting officers across the DoD in how to utilize these flexible acquisition authorities and DIU's competitive acquisition process to acquire these novel commercial technologies. This is a 12-month rotational program where our ICAP fellows will attend Defense Acquisition University classroom-based training, specifically on the other transaction authority. And then they'll also work alongside us, putting that knowledge to use in the execution of DIU prototype projects, which also utilize the other transaction authority. We really did feel that classroom-based training reinforced with relevant on-the-job training, like practical experience, is really needed to help accelerate learning. What we often see is Defense Acquisition University training, when you attend it, it's not necessarily timed to when you actually gain the on-the-job experience. And by combining both the classroom training with the on-the-job experience, we really hope that we can accelerate learning and really train our acquisition professionals across the Department of Defense in this really needed skill set. At the end of the 12-month program, our ICAP fellows will complete a capstone project. And this capstone project will be a training plan that they can then implement within their home organizations. We're not looking at this program to only train these 4 individuals. What we're hoping is that these 4 individuals will become subject matter experts in acquiring novel commercial technology, utilizing the other transaction authority, and they can then share that knowledge with their home organizations. As you can see on the screen here, these are where our 4 ICAP fellows, they've started with us, and they're in the mix of the ICAP program. And they come to us. We have 2 military officers as well as 2 civilian personnel, and they come to us from the Air Force, Army, and the Navy. And so we're really excited to have them on board and to have them learn how we do business, to have them learn the commercial mindset, and then to share that knowledge with their teams, with their organizations upon completion of the program. Finally, just to close, I'd really like to emphasize how important it is for defense acquisition professionals to learn how to leverage these flexible acquisition authorities. Like I stated before, the commercial market is really driving innovation in some of these key technology areas. And the department really needs to learn to be better partners with these industry professionals. We really need to make sure that we encourage them to do business with us, that we know how to negotiate the agreements with them appropriately. And honestly, so that way we can leverage their technology and maintain our technological advantage as a nation. And we really do. So we're really excited about ICAP, and we really feel like this is the first step in training the defense acquisition workforce to leverage these novel commercial technologies. And with that, that is the conclusion of my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Teresa. That was awesome. Next up, we have DoD Cyber Workforce Framework Refresh and Expansion, presented by John Rebello, the Supply Chain IT Operations Analyst for the Supply Chain Risk Management Division at the Information Technology category under Federal Acquisition Service. Over to you, John.
All right. Hopefully no technical difficulties here. It's not allowing me to share. Okay. Trying to do this here. Excuse me. Is that working?
I believe it is. We just need a minute to let it load. Now I see it.
All right. So good morning. I'm John Rubello, a supply chain analyst at GSA. And today I'm going to be presenting on behalf of the Section 889 pre-award surveillance team for our nomination in the Excellence in Cybersecurity Award category. As you see, we have a pretty large team. So now I'd like to give a quick refresh on what Section 889 is and the underlying threat that exists. Section 889 includes two prohibitions regarding certain telecommunications and surveillance equipment and services. Part A is the prohibition of acquiring certain telecommunications and video surveillance equipment. Part B is the prohibition on entering into a contract with an entity that uses certain telecommunications and video surveillance equipment. Section 889 is a compliance risk, but also it is a cybersecurity risk, right? So because this is a cybersecurity award, I wanted to emphasize the threats that exist. As most of you know, there are known vulnerabilities or backdoors that exist within the prohibited entities product offerings, which allow access to devices and networks. The idea of allowing the Chinese government unauthorized access to agency networks and devices could result in cyber espionage, eavesdropping, attacks on critical networks and infrastructure, key supply chain disruptions, a whole host of things, right? All of which pose a huge threat to national security. So now I wanted to discuss some of the Section 889 acquisition challenges that GSA and other government agencies have faced. Which is first, Section 889 is very broad by design, and it does not identify or list affiliates and subsidiaries. This creates a challenge, right, to identify and exclude affiliates and subsidiaries when contracting for telecom. There are also challenges from the ever-changing industry landscape to track brands of own named entities, brands that are produced by named entities, and brands that integrate critical components from named entities. So due to the complex nature of the global marketplace and the broad scope of Section 889, the team identified a need to validate or for validation activities rather, required to, in addition to the self-attestation, right? And the team set out to kind of better define, what areas we needed to focus on for that pre-award assessment. And those areas are the offeror's ownership, the offeror's production channels, and resellers. So success is determining one, if the highest level of ownership is a covered entity, two, was the covered entity involved in the production channels, or three, was the offeror a reseller of covered items or brands. So now I want to discuss how the team confirms Section 889 compliance. The team collects and analyzes a blend of structured and unstructured information to understand all the company's business relationships, which are affiliates and subsidiaries, manufacturing, outsourcing, and types of products being sold. And these assessments are accomplished by using manual online research and in addition to complex vendor risk assessment tools such as the exterior supply chain illumination profiles. The 889 pre-award is integrated into the existing contract award process, and the activities are performed in parallel with the contracting officer's procedures and are completed within the first couple of weeks after the offer is received. So typically even before it's assigned to a contracting officer for award. And when 889 concerns are found, a report is generated and provided to the CO, accompanied with templates to help them address the concern with prospective vendors, right? Because they're not subject matter experts. The 889 pre-award process provides the CO with more confidence in the offer of self-attestation and indicates whether or not a reasonable inquiry is needed, or further inquiry rather. And furthermore, it does not add any additional work for the CO, no training, I guess a little bit, right, with the process flow, but I mean, and it doesn't delay the overall award process, right? So the work that we're doing, and the analysis done by the team provides, acquisition insight that enables a CO to make just a better award, more informed award decision. And the results speak for themselves. The team completed 165 pre-awards on high-risk offers in FY22. And of those, there were 20 offers that had 889 concerns, which represents approximately 12% of the total population. And additionally, the team prevented more than 200 non-compliant items from entering the GSA marketplace, which is significant when considering the level of effort it takes to track, find, and remove those items post-award. And so based on these findings, it's clear to GSA that these activities should be expanded into other areas and, and expanded to applied to other prohibitions in the future. And GSA plans to do just that. So in closing, I just want to say thank you for the nomination. Thank you for your time, and good luck to all the nominees.
Thanks so much, John. Next up, we have the Enterprise Data Office of Texas, presented by Amberly Carter, the Enterprise Data Officer at the Texas Department of Public Safety. Amberly, you're on mute.
Thank you so much, Kim. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Fantastic. Thank you. Let me share my screen with you guys. All right. I've read once and find it arguably true that literally nothing that governments do can be done well without good data. Data is everywhere. It's how you utilize that data that makes the difference in good policy or decision making. Unfortunately, the wealth of data is often not readily available or standardized or even understood. 3 years ago, the Department of Public Safety recognized this need and hired the first enterprise data officer. Soon after, they invested in hiring a data architect, realizing that they needed a single, centralized repository of data that serves as a primary source of truth, in which each division in the agency remains owners of their data. Good morning. My name is Amberly Carter. I am the Enterprise Data Officer at the Texas Department of Public Safety. As the Enterprise Data Officer, I have been charged to provide vision and strategy for the data management activities, which includes establishing data governance, maximizing data quality, and ensuring secure access to data through an established data architecture. As more organizations rely on data to drive critical business decisions, the amount of data being captured is higher than ever. What value is all of that data if organizations can't utilize it quickly and trust it completely? To establish a single source of truth, we have built a lakehouse. Data warehouses and data lakes have been the most widely used storage architectures for big data since the 1980s. Data warehouses were purpose-built for business intelligence and reporting. However, they do not support video, audio, text, data science capabilities, or machine learning. In addition, data warehouses are expensive to acquire and maintain. Data lakes primarily store raw, unprocessed data, while data warehouses store processed and refined data. Because of this, data lakes typically require much larger storage capacity than data warehouses. Additionally, raw, unprocessed data is malleable and is ideal for machine learning. The risk of all that raw data, however, is that data lakes sometimes become data swamps without appropriate data quality and data governance measures in place. Due to the extreme differences of both data storage options, many organizations invest in both data warehouses and data lakes. Instead, DPS chose to utilize a modern version, a data lakehouse, which marries the best of both worlds, an ability to intake any data type and bring reportable functionality. A data lakehouse is a modern data storage architecture that combines the flexibility of data lakes and the data management of data warehouses. The lakehouse unique ability to combine the data science focus of the data lake with the analytics power of the data warehouse in an open environment unlocks incredible value for organizations. It allows an organization not only to be able to utilize all their data types and draw analytics, but also to continue to modernize the architecture and strategically look towards the what's next with data such as machine learning and artificial intelligence. Implementing the Lakehouse at our agency allows us to enforce and enhance data governance. We can ensure data is secure, accurate, available, and usable. There are controlled permissions and thoroughly established security controls. We are able to improve data standardization, quality, and consistency. In addition, we're able to enforce retention. Data is stored depending on need and use. And with a predetermined timeframe, the data can then be eliminated. While architecting the single source of truth for the agency is both foundational and critical, much of the value is seen in its output. At DPS, we're extending analytics beyond business intelligence. Utilizing our recently launched enterprise Tableau servers, internal and external, we are able to provide those with designated access the ability to view, report on, and perform data analysis for their division as a self-service tool. This enables the business to make immediate data-driven decisions. Additionally, the Enterprise Data Office will use the Lakehouse to publish designated executive dashboards to the agency's public-facing website, visually telling the DPS story to the world. The mission of the Texas Department of Public Safety is to protect and serve Texas. Implementing the Enterprise Data Lakehouse has allowed us to further that mission by enabling consistent, informed decisions, obtaining strategic value from data. This allows the agency to establish better efficiency, effectiveness, and quality in organizational operations and ensure the integrity of data assets. We are also able to foster trust and transparency in our service to the people of Texas by publishing visual data relating to our mission operations and effectiveness, assuring our communities that we are a responsible steward of the public's resources. Thank you for your time today.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for that. Next up is the Enterprise Cloud Solutions Office at the Department of Veterans Affairs, presented by Dave Catanoso and Joe Stevenson from the Department of Veterans Affairs.
Good afternoon, everyone. Let me get my video started. So I'm Dave Catanoso with the Department of Veterans Affairs, Office of Information Technology, Infrastructure Operations area. And I'm joined by Joe Stevenson from our Enterprise Cloud Solutions Office. And we're here to present our VA cloud migration success story. For those of you who don't know, the VA is the second largest federal agency. We have over almost 500,000 staff, and we support over 20 million veterans. We have three main mission areas: healthcare, benefits, memorials, and a large corporate infrastructure to support that complex mission. Like many other federal agencies, we started our journey to the cloud back in 2011. Screen cleared up here. With a cloud first mandate. And like many agencies, we struggled to get success, but due to the many challenges, organizational change, training of staff, contracting challenges, how to purchase the cloud, and just the technological shifts required. And in about the 2015-16 timeframe, we began to move our email system to the cloud, which ended up being one of the largest migrations of mail from an on-prem mail system to a SaaS offering from Office 365, migrating almost 500,000 mailboxes to the cloud successfully in the 2017 timeframe. And then shortly after that, we established the need for an enterprise cloud to host our applications, and we formed our Enterprise Cloud Solutions Office in FY 2018 and began migrating some of our most mission critical applications. And a lot of times consultants will tell you, start with something small and gain traction, but we had some business cases that required us to move some of our biggest and most challenging applications right away. And by doing that, we had a lot of challenges, but we also gained a lot of confidence and were able to build an effort and a team that could migrate pretty much anything the VA has to host. And we've successfully now migrated many applications to the cloud, which we're going to talk about in a second. So we're well on track to meet our goal. During this time frame in 2018, we set an aspirational goal to migrate 350 applications to the cloud by the end of fiscal year 2024. And you can see from this chart, we're well on track to do that. Today, we have 294 applications migrated with another 100 applications in pre-production ready to go. So we're on target to easily make our 350 target by the end of fiscal year 2024, and we're continuing to drive past that. Our goal now is to get more sophisticated with modernization and modernize and mature our use of the cloud with financial operations, containerization, cloud native strategies, maturing our automation processes, and using AI ops to reduce our mean time to resolution when we do have an incident. I'm going to hand it off to Joe, whose team has been instrumental in making this successful with his enterprise tools that we provide to our cloud customers. Joe?
Next slide. So what we're looking at here, first, I got to start with a disclaimer. You know, the VA has a large ecosystem of tools. The ones identified on this brief are provided as examples of currently contracted tools used to meet some of our requirements, not as an endorsement of any particular tool. We didn't cover every category, but these were just some of the high-level categories. We're going to talk about 6 of the high-level categories. Tracking and accountability. The tools we use within tracking and accountability are our inventory systems, which is our VASI and CloudKey. Our CloudKey is an integrated tool that speaks from system to system and helps us populate and provision the environment. All the metadata throughout the environment is tracked, maintained, and fed to all the different tools so we know what we're talking about. So with tracking and accountability, these are the tools used to create an inventory of systems or applications within the VA. VASI controls all the systems and applications at the VA, whereas CloudKey provides information on the systems that are migrated to the clouds, developed in the cloud, and presents all our accountability within cloud. The CSP tools and the CSPs in their native tools, which Azure has 184 tools and AWS has 163 tools, are all integrated with our tools, our third-party tools, and our inventory systems. Our governance tool allows us ease of implementation, policy enforcement, policy management, and reporting of policies enforced or not implemented within the cloud environment. Our financial tool allows us the simplicity of being able to see all of the data or the consumption rates from each individual environment, no matter what the environment is. In this case, we're using AWS and Azure, so it gives us a single view of what our costs are versus having to go to AWS, log into Azure, try and identify the delta between the two tools, or the two environments. This gives us one view, lets our customer quickly identify where they need to apply funds at. Our APM tool, our application performance monitoring, are ways to improve performance, alerting on any trending information which could proactively allow environments or improvements in the environment, detects the possible disruption of services or degradation to services. Our AI Ops tool is a little bit more advanced. It gives us the ability to monitor the performance of the infrastructure, ways to improve performance, alerting on any trending information which could proactively allow changes in the environment or improvements in the environment. It detects the possible service disruptions or degradation to services allows us the capability to automate the remediations or identify issues and quickly fix them, and in some cases fix them without bringing in our teams in the middle of the night. We wanted to do a data flow architecture, but it's a little bit complicated, so we've gone back to that one. But these ecosystems of tools are all tied together and allows data to flow from system to system. And no matter what business unit we talk to or we're having conversations with, allows us to easily identify what information needs to be relayed and how the metadata is tagged and relayed from environment to environment. Sir?
Thanks, Joe. So digital transformation is a key part of VA's modernization strategy and how we intend to improve innovation and deliver better services to our veterans and our staff that serves them. And per our new CIO, Mr. Del Bene, we have 4 major principles that we're following to do that. We are doing vision-driven execution, where we're very clearly identifying what our mission is and our roadmap to get there. We're emphasizing operational excellence, both engineering, security, and resource allocation. We definitely want to provide a delightful experience to both our staff and veterans themselves. And to do all that, we need a great workforce. We already have a very diverse workforce. Over 50% of our IT workforce are veterans. And we want to make sure we give them opportunities to learn new technology and have a fulfilling career path so they can help us deliver these amazing services to our veterans. We're honored to be nominated for this award and look forward to your support. Thank you very much.
Thank you both. Fantastic presentation. Up next, we have CBP Robotic Process Automation, the BOT team, presented by Ronnie Namada. Ronnie, over to you.
Thank you. I'm going to share my screen. All right, so I'm Ronnie Namada with U.S. Customs and Border Protection. I'm a contracting officer here, as well as leading our group of small RPA development team.
Ronnie's
For small,
but I'm not seeing the screen yet.
I'm not seeing. Okay, let's see. Are you able to see the screen?
I see myself. I think
See,
you.
okay.
So maybe you're sharing. Yep, there you go.
Okay, here we go. All right, I'm gonna start the slide. Are you able to see the slide?
Perfect.
Okay. Like I said, I'm Ronnie Namada. I lead a small group of all volunteer RPA development team. We're all contracting officers. We have an OIT Office of Information and Technology Liaison, and most recently we now have a developer. As you know, we're busy with all our other typical contracting officer duties, and we need like a developer now to step ahead and do the maintenance and future development work for us. So how did the RPA start in our procurement team? We had an issue with the obligations, which are unspent funds from contracts. And this is a problem that's with every agency. And we had it growing and we had to get rid of this. So one of the technologies that we're looking at to utilize was RPA. And so when we went to call for a small group of development team, we sat down together, figured out how to design this, develop, implement, and put it into production. So what resulted out of this is a high-level complex attended bot. You know, it took 12 months from design to implement to production, but in actuality, it took like about 6 weeks of our time. We spent probably 2 to 4 hours a week on this small amount of time while we did our typical CO duties. What the bot does, it goes into internal and procurement, financial and procurement systems. It goes outside of our systems into FPDSNG, which is an external government system. And it utilizes multiple business applications such as Outlook, Word, Excel, and Adobe Acrobat. And as you see right there, that's 7 points of failure. And we got to about a 90% success rate, which is pretty good considering, you know, most of these systems that we access is just really based on the speed of the network, how it acts that day, really. So that's the next slide here. Some learning lessons out of that first development. We didn't do typically most teams do a small win. We went for a big win on this. You know, and it first started with gaining the trust of business system owners from our OIT shop, our financial shop, and our own procurement shop. For procurement folks like us, we're not really familiar with how to do these things, but we learned how to create a process design document and a solutions design document, which were able to help translate what we wanted to a technical format for our developers. Some results out of this was that it reduced our typical deobligation process from 60 minutes to 23 minutes. I mean, that's a pretty big significant savings to our folks. In the 2 years that it has been in production, it's performed at least 200 actions ranging anywhere from a penny to $1 million deobligation. It's reduced 7,400 hours of admin time for our folks. And as of last month, it had saved at least $30 million, returned that back to the Treasury. So expanding outside of the deobligation bot, we went and created a couple more for our own electronic contract filing system. This bot accesses a DHS record system where we put in all the contract files. So any contract files within DHS goes into this system, and it reduced the time from a typical, say, like a 1 hour upload to a 15-minute upload. I mean, it's pretty good, and it saved a lot of headache from our workforce, just sitting there and uploading. And we went for a small one here with we call it FAPIS bot, which is a Federal Awardee Performance and Integrity Information System. It's more of a quality of life kind of feature. It does something in like a minute, and it helps with our contractor responsibility determination. For the future of RPA and emerging technologies at CBP and procurement, of course, we're going to continue to automate additional admin processes, but we're also going to look deeper into automated and emerging technology tools. And one of the items that we have awarded in the past couple months is a automated contract review tool that would really save hours and hours of time. Typically, if you're submitting a solicitation or award, you guys send it through our policy and then our legal team. I think this particular automated contract review tool would reduce that down in a matter of like a couple minutes. So significant savings, and we're always looking to see what kind of emerging technology tools we could use in CBP's procurement. And we're also piloting that same ECFS bot I had talked about earlier with our ICE partners. From the last update I received, they're going to try to put that into production for the rest of their workforce. And lastly, just wanted to share, like for these bots, interns were big users of these bots, and from what they have told me, they learned a lot of how the obligations and file uploadings are just watching these bots work. So, in the pandemic time where you're not shoulder to shoulder, having these tools to watch and learn rather than reading off a piece of paper was very valuable to them. And so this is our RPA team here: Chris Nye, myself, Camilla Schmidt, Joseph Millard, Bartek Schwalek, and our bot team champion, Janice Hill. Ms. Hill's contact information is here. And if you needed to reach out to any one of us, you can just Google us, especially me. I don't think there's any other Ronnie Namada out in this world. So if you find it in the Google, it's likely me. So, and that is it.
Thank you so much, Ronnie. Up next, presenting, we have IT modernization at GSA, presented by Earl Bizzell, the GSA training program manager. Over to you, Earl or Fred. We can't hear you.
How about now?
Perfect.
That worked? All right, let me see if I can share my screen. Whoops, like my videos froze.
We can see you, we can hear you.
Okay.
And your slide deck is up.
Okay. So with the we wound up a couple years ago started a training program here with GSA, and so normally I'm used to speaking like 3 hours to 6 hours, so I'm kind of condensing this down to 7 minutes here. Overall for FY22, what we wound up doing was we did 51 courses. That's averaged out almost one a week. And this was for the federal employees, that small agencies, large agencies. We did the contractors also involved. And then we also reached out and we started supporting .edu. So high school teachers, community colleges and university. they could kind of come in and have a place to do some refresher training. So out of the 51 courses we had 4,400 seats that folks had, team members that had signed up for the courses. Then we came up with a cost avoidance, and roughly, so if it was a Cisco class, if it was AWS class, if it was a ISC Square, we did a CISSP course. There's different values, and some of those courses cost more than others. So roughly, it was like 3.5 million in cost avoidance for FY22. And then we had 157 agencies that at least sent one team member that attended the courses. Again, and we just started, and this doesn't include the high school, middle school, university instructors or the military. So we've worked a lot with the Marine Corps. So I see we've got a lot of our Marine Corps friends, Air Force, Navy, and then Army. So we've also worked with those agencies a lot also. So this was last year, what we did last year. So it's kind of been in comparison. So what we had this year, we had 4,400, and this was 1,700 last year that attended at least one course. Usually they attended multiple courses. So if they attended, 2 courses or 3 courses, but we're showing an increase in there, 154 agencies. Again, that was last year, but the big one here is this 30. So last year we did 30 courses. This year we wound up doing 51 courses. Again, and it was no cost for team members to attend the courses that we did, with the exception of a couple. So I'll talk about those also. And then we did the 6 down here. So the other thing we started doing is, so I'm in Charleston, South Carolina, and I'm watching Kirsten's background with the winds blowing because I'm in Charleston. So whatever storm she's getting, I'm going to get it later tonight or tomorrow. So I'm kind of watching to see what how the trees are blowing in the background there. But we wound up doing East Coast. I'll say we had an early edition and we had a late edition. So the early edition says, from I'll say Eastern time from 9 to 4 roughly. Then we also had a lot of team members that wanted to attend, but they were West Coast, Hawaii, Japan, and then we also had some Army folks that have attended that are like South Korea, some bases. So we wound up doing some evening courses also. So we'll have I call them the early edition, and we have a late edition. So we kind of meet those time frames. It gets a little bit logistically some challenges because we've got a limited number of instructors, which I'll talk about, but we've had an increase from last year to this year. So that's what we're looking at. At the end of each class, we send out a survey. The team does, and definitely it's a team event. We send out a survey, and it's gone pretty well. Again, this year it's all been online, and there's pros and cons with that. We're able to reach out to wherever you've got a internet connection. One of the keys here is with the training programs that we're using, the curriculum that we're using, is the team members have access, and we're using a hands-on lab. So you're working on systems to simulate. So we talked about the last one was talking about the bots. Well, in the AWS and the cloud classes, they're actually configuring a bot to go out and do things in a little sandbox environment. So you're getting hands-on practice, be it if it's in the cloud, if it's Cisco with the networking. But we've had good feedback with this. So it's up from FY21, went up a little bit more. The marketplace, so the training, so what we really tried to focus on was not so much of here's what Fred thinks with, what you need to know with AWS or, Microsoft, ISC Square is a really big one we're working on right now, is we're using vendor developed curriculum, and most of this is going to be no cost training. So you get access to these resources for an extended period of time. Well, I'll say extended period of time. So I usually set up the course in January, and then they have access all the way through December. So you're talking a 12-month cycle there to a sandbox environment. So it's not hitting your system at all. So we've got AWS. There's a AWS Academy Microsoft with Azure there. So you're working in the, that Microsoft cloud environment. Cisco, that's a big networking. So we're looking at, there's cloud, there's networking, there's core technologies that we're looking at. Google, we've talked with Google some, haven't really figured out how to get that curriculum available to everybody. Then we've got VMware, IT Academy. So there's a lot of VMware. So again, there's hands-on that we're looking at. Red Hat is one that has got a fantastic, we utilize the Red Hat Online Learning, fantastic resource there. Again, all these, there's a curriculum and there's also the hands-on portion, portion on this. Then we did down here, these are more the security ones. Easy Counsel is one of them that we've started looking at. And I'll say the biggest one we've been using, we started a pilot program with our first, the ISC Square, this first CISSP, we did a pilot course for there and went really, really well. And again, the cybersecurity, my thought is you either move forward or you're moving backwards. You're not saying the same. So you have to constantly have to refresh this. So some of these have a student kit cost to them. Even with the ISC Square, there was a student kit cost, but with what we're working with ISC Square very closely with is, you have access to the curriculum. And if the curriculum changes that's geared towards that exam, if it changes, we're using all the team members get that student kit that has the most up-to-date curriculum involved there. So they're getting the latest and greatest. Then the other thing we've done is with using in-house instructors. That's the key. So if you attend a AWS, Cisco, those have been ones we've done a lot with so far. And then ISC Square, we have an in-house instructor, and I've been teaching most of these, but we've had another federal worker team member do the CISSP course. You're getting, here's the way it is for, I'll say, the general business, and then also with our government networks, DoD military networks, we've got a little bit different security requirements, so we can address those questions also with in the course there. And in the future, so what we're looking at is, so we started this a couple of years ago. We've had 4,400 that have come registered for classes. I think it's a really good, an opportunity to say, here's how we can have training available for the workforce using in-house instructors. Hopefully we're going to get back to more on-site training. I prefer on-site as opposed to you can kind of look at the classroom, but an avenue, resources available. I see Kirsten. Am I done?
Almost. We just need to wrap it up here.
Okay. So that's kind of what we're looking for. A lot of opportunities. Again, I'm used to talk for about 3 to 6 hours here. So benefits, centralized shared services, cross-agency collaboration, remote learning. And then this one here is a really big one in this fourth bullet, employee satisfaction, recruitment, retention. So if folks say, hey, I can get certified training, hopefully that leads to a better satisfaction, recruitment, and retention there. And then contact information. Tom Santucci does a fantastic job. Can't say enough about Tom. There's his email. There's my information. And then here is the general mailbox here. So hopefully I'm within the time limit there.
Thank you so much, Fred. You were fantastic. Always love having you on. Thank you again. All right, up next, we have the OIT personal pronoun team presented by Josh Seafried and Nicole Gilbride. Welcome, over to you.
Thank you. Great. My name is Josh Seafried. My pronouns are he, him, and we'll talk to you about how we did pronouns across Microsoft Teams and Outlook without allowing people to just have free range of editing their names. Next slide. So what we're going to talk about is why this change was needed how we made the change, what we learned, and then how you can also make this change, because we're also getting a lot of inquiries from a lot of agencies and also from the private sector as well. Next slide. President Biden said, as president, I'm committed to defending the rights of LGBTQ individuals. I want to know the president has your back, and that's why we did this project. But as we discovered, more than just LGBTQ individuals wanted this project. Next slide. So what we learned was that, especially during the COVID times, as people were doing Zoom, as we're doing right now, you may not know the gender of someone or how to address someone. So what we learned was that having that identifier of someone's pronouns with their name builds that empathy and trust and reduces that frustration for employees, especially if you have a gender neutral name, such as, like, say, Kendall or anything else like that. And veterans, when they engage with us, they can see that we now recognize the pronouns, especially with our transgender veterans. And we especially deal with a lot of industry partners all across the network. So we wanted to make this a priority. Next slide. And this is how we approached our CEO to help employees recognize the individuals based upon their personal preferences and help veterans realize that VA is an inclusive and safe place for the LGBTQ individuals, because we haven't had that trust, especially because of the Don't Ask, Don't Tell policy and the transgender ban on people serving in the military. Next slide. And I'll pass over to Nicole.
Hey everyone, I'm Nicole Gilbride and I use she, her pronouns. So this is a little bit about how we did what we did. We approached this like we would any other technical project, where we started with what the requirements were. And we reminded ourselves to keep it agile. We weren't focused so much on exactly how this would be implemented, but we really tried to zero in on what were the outcomes we were driving towards, what do we want to make sure we were safeguarding against. You can see some of our requirements listed below, but some things are really important. Like, we didn't want to make it so that a supervisor or a leader had to approve your pronouns, because we know for those that are in the community that are trying to capture their pronouns, this can sometimes be a bit of a challenging conversation. And so we wanted to take that roadblock out of people's way. We also wanted to make sure we had some data on what we were doing, and we wanted to have this guidance go VA-wide as rapidly as possible. And we got the CIO to sign off very quickly in January, and we were off to the races and had a pilot going very rapidly. If we go to our next slide, here you'll see the phases we had to the project. So we started with just having basic email protocol in place that allowed employees to reflect their pronouns in their signature blocks. Then we got started on this part of the project, which was making it so that you could do it in your display settings within Active Directory and the global address list. Then we moved into an automation phase where we were trying to eliminate the amount of hours that would be required for our staff to do work on these, so that it could be something that was automatic, but also protected against any rogue activity or anybody trying to derail the process. And right now we're on phase 4, which is really where you all come in. We want to share about what we did and help other agencies and departments adopt a similar policy and process and make it automated. If you go to the next slide, this is where you can see some of the lessons learned from our pilot. Again, we treated this like any other Agile project. We had an MVP with the pilot, and during that phase, we learned a few key things. First, automation was key. We realized this was technically feasible, but if we could automate it, we would really help limit any potential burden of man hours related to the project. The second was finding that we needed to have limited options. We took this from 2 perspectives. Our client base, the people we were trying to serve, our end users, wanted to have a lot of customization options, but we also realized that from a human-centered design perspective, the fewer options we had, the easier it would be for people to self-navigate the system and put in their pronouns themselves. So we really tried to balance that limited options with the pronoun additions throughout the project, because we had some great ideas come in through the MVP about different things that we hadn't thought as a community, as a group of sort of requirements drivers, what we might need. An example would be adding she, Aya as a pronoun option, because we work with such a large Latino population, there was a requirement for that. So we've made some adjustments along the way. And having a process for that has really streamlined things as we go and made it seem very fair and equitable so that everybody's needs and requirements are represented. And last is the custom pronouns. We realized it was a nice to have, but not a need to have. We did have an option originally where people could submit a request for pronouns, and we got a few rogue ones, a few Star Trek references, a few nefarious ones. So we really quickly realized having a set list was going to be the best path forward. If you go to the next slide, this is where you can see what our user adoption looked like. So there's a line on the left side of this chart which shows you that first piloting phase. This is where we did absolutely no formal communications that this was in a pilot phase at all. We set the technology up. I'm proud to report that both Josh and I were two of the very first users to request our pronouns, but we just used word of mouth. We let a few people on our teams know, they let a few people on their teams know, and we had over 6,000 users adopt it before we had even done any formal messaging. You'll see in late March, early April, we had a VA-wide announcement go out, and that was when we saw adoption really skyrocket overnight. And you can see it's continued to steadily climb week after week, month after month, as people are seeing pronouns on other users' accounts and then deciding to implement them themselves. So we've seen a lot of great progress here. We're still targeting to have more people adopt it. We want to have at least 10 to 20% of our staff using pronouns on a consistent basis, but we don't want to require it either. So we're really happy with the growth we've had. If we go to the next slide, this is where you can see what sort of this pronoun process automation looks like. So here you can see me selecting samples of what my pronouns would be or what I would like to change them to. And this is all done on an automated system. So there's no requirement for any person on the service desk side or on our Active Directory side to do any specific work. All of this happens in the back end of the system automatically. It didn't start out like this, so this is a new development that we've had recently, and this has been something that's really helped us. We just passed 25,000 users using this pronoun process, so we're really excited to see this automation in place, and we're excited to help other people use it too. If we go to the next slide, this should be where we're wrapping up and sort of what's next and what we invite you all to do as well. So you have a few options. We encourage anybody out there who's hearing this, even if this isn't your area of focus or effort, we really would encourage you to look into your department or agency. Do you have a policy in place right now? Is there a conversation going on about this that maybe you could help join in or amplify? And then we encourage you to make the case for change with your leadership. This was really as simple as Josh having an idea, him partnering up with me to say, hey, you know the back end tech side, how can we make this happen? And then we had a really strong technical partner, Chuck, who's like sort of the third part of our little triad that really made this happen. And so we encourage you all to get the conversation going. And we want you to know you can reach out to us if you need any assistance, both on how we got the conversation going with leadership, how we got them to buy into the idea, and if you want to talk to us about the technology on the back-end system that we use to make this possible. And last but not least, spread the word to your peers, your customers. This isn't something that's just limited to the federal space, like Josh mentioned earlier. We want to see other agencies and departments adopt this, but we're also interested in making this happen globally. So anywhere you can adopt this as an industry partner and within your own companies, we really are encouraging others to start implementing this process. And we've got some contact info on the page as well, in case you want to email us and find out how to learn more or get some help along your journey. We're creating little kits to help you all get started, and we'd love to partner with you. So Josh, I'll hand it back to you to see if you've got any wrap-up comments.
Nope, I think that sounds perfect. Nope, that's everything. I think that's perfect. And this really matters to our employees. We've gotten so many messages from our folks about how this mattered to them. So I really encourage people to look at this and doing this in your own workplace.
All right, thank you all so much. Really appreciate it. Next up, we have the GSA RPA team presented by Anthony Cavallo, the Robotic Process Automation Program Director over at GSA. Anthony, whenever you are ready.
Thank you so much. I also have a few team members joining me today, and go ahead and start sharing my screen. Thank you very much for having us today and giving us this opportunity to talk a little bit about our team here. Again, I'm Anthony Cavallo, the director of our RPA team here at GSA. Just real quick, what is our team? We've been doing this for a little over 5 years now. We're in our 5th year. We start off very small, kind of part-time work on this, now to we become a full-fledged program with over 10 employees. A lot of those employees are upskilled already, people we already had in our organization that we've upskilled on this software, and now we're building automations across GSA and helping out other agencies as well. See there, we have well over 100 automations. We ended last fiscal year with 120 projects that we delivered across GSA, with estimated savings of over 400,000 hours. Our team also, we run the RPA, the federal RPA community of practice. And last year we got over 1,500 members. It's like 100 different agencies, sub-agencies that are represented in this community of practice. We'll talk a little bit about that more in a future side. Just like we've been here for a few years, we have evolved over the years, and it's more than just RPA. You can see there our vision is we want to try to help GSA find as many processes that we can optimize and automate for our business lines within GSA, try to give them back that much needed time to do their higher level work. Right. So there are a lot of different things our teams can do within the optimization phase. There could be the solution could require a chatbot, RPA, maybe even a web app. We have Google as our cloud products. We have a lot of Google automations in our delivery as well. So just kind of going through where we started off, GSA, we kind of did the crawl, walk, run for our automation solutions here. Our CFO at the time, back in February 2018, set a very ambitious goal. He was going to a lot of these conferences saying, hey, what is RPA? Is it something we can do? And he wanted to try to get a bot built in 100 days. We got really close to that. It was about 120 days, I think we did it in. But in that 120 days, for first bot build, we reached out. We got some assistance with a contractor to kind of help us get started. As I said, we reached out internally to find out if there's anyone inside the agency that wanted to learn this new technology and help the organization out in building these automations. From there, after that first year, from when we delivered our first automation in June 2018, that's when we started kind of going into the walking phase. We're like, hey, you know what? We do like this. I think this is going to be really good for the agency. And we were utilizing those internal FTEs to help build more automations. You see there, after our first automation delivered in June 18, we already bumped up to 24 automations delivered for the agency, and we started branching out to more than just CFO. We were helping other organizations within GSA build automations. We started establishing all of our internal governance procedures, working with IT, working with security, establishing all that governance. The next phase, kind of another year after that, that's when we officially became a program. Again, we're kind of doing the crawl, walk, kind of getting our feet wet. And now, you know what, this is what we want to do. We became an official program. At the end of that phase, you see we've more than doubled. We were at 65 automations after August 20. Further refining what the program does, putting more controls in place to ensure that, you know, we are building sound automations for the organization. And then a lot of those part-time employees that we upskilled, they became full-time developers. And we had a team of about 8 individuals that established that first program. And now we're getting into that crawl, walk, we're getting into the run. You know, we, at the same time in that August to September, we were building our enterprise platform to allow us to do unattended automations, you know, actual true digital workers running around the clock with these automations across GSA. In addition, we started looking to other technologies. How can we implement more intelligent automation technologies like machine learning, AI? We introduced an advanced OCR capabilities that is able to look at
scans of images or PDFs and pull unstructured data out of those documents and use that data and move it to different areas of GSA that need that information from that unstructured documents. We were also able to move more towards a unattended first, right? So instead of humans hitting the run button and running attended automations, now when we brought in new projects into our group, those solutions are going straight to our enterprise platform, our unattended environment, and running as a true digital worker. And then today is saying we are full force looking forward thinking, trying to bring in more of those AI, ML type technologies into our solutions, hoping to develop automations that can help other agencies that they can utilize, and looking into future, trying to help get some sort of offering out there in FedRAMP, so this could be more of a shared service. I'm going to hand it over to one of our team members, Becky Schultz.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Thank you, Anthony. As you just heard Anthony say, over the last 5 years, our team and our program have continued to progress by looking at feedback, soliciting feedback from our customers, taking in lessons, and then learning through what did work and what didn't work. Not only are we working towards all of the goals you just heard about, but also our team is constantly reassessing the ROI and impacts of our automations and process improvements and optimizations. We believe in a steady state evaluation process to stay agile. One way we do this is by evaluating the alignment of our projects to the overall GSA mission and the strategic goals set out by all of our business lines. Everything we do in our office through innovative technology solutions holds either a direct or indirect relationship to GSA's mission. But in every case, it is also directly improving customer satisfaction and has a direct link to customer experience by improving the way employees do their work and deliver services to their customer and the taxpayer. Our team exists to help realize GSA's values of service and accountability through innovation in order to accelerate the progress towards our vision of becoming an effective and efficient government for the American people. I'm going to turn it over now to my colleague, Brian Moores, who will provide some examples of what we've accomplished as a team. Brian?
Thank you, Becky. So of the hundreds of the 100+ automations that we do, we figured we'd highlight a few of them. One of them is in the area of acquisition. So Public Building Services acquisition came to us to help out with their closeout automation. And this automation allows COs to go down 4 different paths, right? One of the paths is to do a contract release of claims. Another one will actually do a comprehensive review of the contract's financials. And then another path will allow them to conduct a financial review and close out the contract. And then a 4th path allows them to draft the contract de-obligation mod, and it delivers it to the CO, of course, for them to review and make any modifications and submit it. I'd like to point out PBS acquisitions doesn't use this just to close out. The COs actually use the financial review path quite often throughout the life of the acquisition to just keep their finger on the pulse of the financials as they're working on their contract. So they've got a lot more use out of it than just when they want to close out a contract. The second one, it was an interesting automation that we worked with the Marketing Research as a Service group. And they had a need to help our customer agencies to take a look at acquisition possibilities and market research. And so what this allows a CSD, a customer service director, to upload a Google sheet that has thousands of commodity-based items, and it searches GSA Advantage for who offers those items, what's the terms. It does a comprehensive, it delivers a comprehensive research of who's available for selling those, who sells it at like 60%, who can do 75% of those items that are on the list, who can do 60%, who can do 50%, and it delivers it to the acquisition people for them to take a look at and see. And you can see that it really allowed this program to scale their operations 450% and helped drive like $3.9 billion of sales through GSA vehicles. And the 4th one was in real estate. Our CFO agency had a requirement to search 8,000 lease documents to pull out key information out of those. And the challenge was that these were non-standard documents. So we had a whole bunch of historical documents and they all look differently. And so the data elements we were looking for may be on page 3 or page 5 or page 30. And we had to use this technology to scan those documents and pull out the data elements that we needed in order to meet the need. The lift was heavy. It would have required us to stand up a staff of like 30 or 40 people to do this, but we were able to achieve this through automation. This was actually our first natural language processing automation that our team delivered to the organization. Now I'd like to hand over to my other teammate, Gabrielle Perret, to take us home.
Hey everyone, I'm excited to talk to you about another one of our team's achievements, which is the Federal RPA Community of Practice. We have over 1,500 members, federal employees from over 100 different departments and agencies all across the federal government. And our community of practice really aims to help agencies convert their RPA enthusiasm into action. We help programs get started and we help programs scale up quick. And this is essentially by connecting everyone in the government who's working on or interested in RPA. And we achieve our mission by hosting virtual events like interactive office hours, demos, sessions with experts where folks can jump in and ask their questions on any program maturity level. Since our inception in 2019, we've attracted over 14,000 folks who've joined in. We send a lot of email newsletters and other communication updates to keep everybody in the loop of everything that's going on in federal RPA. We also this year launched a mentoring program where we've paired 11 emerging programs with 9 leads at more mature programs at agencies like NASA, USDA, GSA, and other agencies with mature RPA programs. One of the exciting things that we put out this year was the update to the federal RPA use case inventory. When we first launched this 3 years ago, we came out with 300 use cases. We then tripled it the next year to 985 use cases. And this year we just published this and we've collected over 1,800 examples of RPA being used across the federal government. We've also put out some interesting government-wide insights, like our State of Federal RPA report. We conduct a maturity survey across programs all across the government every year and roll those results up into the State of Federal RPA report. And we've also issued some government-wide guidance and best practices like our RPA playbook and our Rapid Process Transformation Handbook. So we hope that you'll check out the Federal RPA Community of Practice and join in on the work that we've been doing government-wide. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Gabrielle and team. Excellent presentation. Up next, we have the National Climate Adaptation Center for the U.S. Geological Survey presented by Emily Fort, Public Affairs Specialist at the Department of Interior.
Hi, everybody. Let me just share my screen. Can everyone see everything?
Yes, but it's not in presentation mode yet.
Yep.
Looks great.
All right. Oh, that did work. Okay. Perfect. Okay. So I'm so happy to be here and appreciate the nomination. I'm a part of the U.S. Geological Survey, which is a bureau within the Department of the Interior. And we look at impacts to fish, wildlife, and their habitats and how they may adapt to climate change. So this organization was started in 2008, and our mission really is focusing on how ecosystems and fish and wildlife can adapt to a changing climate. We're a university and federal partnership, so we have 9 centers across the landscape, including Alaska and Hawaii, where we're looking at the regional needs of resource managers. And resource managers are your national park managers, your Fish and Wildlife Service, refuge managers, other public land managers, as well as state agencies who are managing state lands. So what do they need to do to adapt to a changing climate? That could be thinking about how sea level rise might be impacting the park, or how warmer temperatures are impacting wildlife. So this partnership has allowed us to really bring the best of federal science and academic science together to meet those needs. And we started in 2008, and we've been growing ever since. We recently added a 9th center in the Midwest last year, and our budget has grown, and the needs are really growing as well as the evidence of a changing climate becomes more clear. As I mentioned, we are a federal university partnership, so we work closely with a broad range of consortium members that include universities, NGOs, tribal organizations, indigenous communities, as well as other partners that are interested in this area. And we also look at providing training for early career scientists and managers so that they can better understand how to implement this science. We work across the Department of the Interior, so this would include the National Park Service, the Fish and Wildlife Service, the Bureau of Land Management, etc. We also support a variety of tribes and other indigenous communities, and we work closely with the Bureau of Indian Affairs and have tribal liaisons based in each of our regions that work with the tribes in those regions. A big focus of our community is really on actionable science. And by that, I mean, it's science that is meeting a specific need or question or management challenge of those resource managers. So we work closely with them to identify those science needs. That includes developing an annual science plan and soliciting projects that directly address the needs that the managers have identified. And we use a tool called co-production, which means working closely hand in hand with the resource managers and the scientists to make sure that we are developing science and products that meet those needs. And our products are really, we're trying to bring the best of technology and really help managers understand how to best use it. So we develop a variety of tools for applying science to these resource management decisions. Of course, being the U.S. Geological Survey, there is a big focus on mapping, but we also are using a variety of web tools and services. Of course, the traditional publication, and we make all of our data publicly available. We use data visualization tools and things like high performance computing as well. And so that brings me to the end of my presentation. My contact information and my colleagues' contact information is on screen, and we'd be happy to chat if anyone has any questions, as well as our website and social media handles if folks want to reach out that way as well. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you so much, Emily. We really appreciate it. Next up is NASA AI/ML Transformation Team, presented by Edward McLarney, the Digital Transformation Lead for AI and ML at the Enterprise OCIO Data Science Services. Screen looks good, Edward, but we cannot hear you.
How about now?
Sounds good.
All right. Okay. Hi, everybody. My name is Ed McLarney. I lead the NASA AI machine learning transformation team. My co-lead is Nikunj Oza. We've got a variety of AI machine learning leaders across NASA working with us. Our effort is a key element in NASA's overall digital transformation, which is focused on 4 priority targets that have gathered real support from leaders across NASA. So we're aiming to transform the way that we discover new things, the way that we conduct our engineering efforts, the way that we make our decisions, and the way that we conduct our operations. In each of these areas, there's a lot of hunger for AI machine learning to contribute. So we've got great demand signal and a good reason for AI machine learning to contribute. For me, leading AI machine learning transformation is not about directing all the work. In fact, hardly any folks work for me. Instead, we're setting the conditions and being an influence leadership kind of role. So To do that, we're applying AI machine learning to mission and mission support needs. We're growing a community, making connections and sharing approaches and lessons across the agency. We're really pushing hard on workforce development. We're making tools and platforms easy and affordable to get, as well as secure. We're working hand in hand with a sister effort in data transformation, which is truthfully one of the cornerstones of our digital transformation efforts. We're getting the word out across the NASA and partner community, adapting industry emerging capabilities rather than rolling our own. And we're beginning to work at scaling approaches so that we can really get the payoffs. We're in our third year of AI machine learning transformation implementation, and I'll tell you about a few of the successes that we've had in each of these areas. So as far as use cases or practical applications, we had a very small investment that turned into something pretty cool, which is an astronaut glove image analysis prototype deployed on the International Space Station with partners Microsoft and Hewlett-Packard Enterprise. That was to try to detect cracks in gloves before going on spacewalks. Other work includes drone and air taxi autopilots recognizing flight emergencies and then recovering from them, using satellite imagery to detect coral reef health. Of course, for many years, JPL from NASA has had rovers on Mars too. We also contributed strongly to the federal public AI use case inventory. We published 60 public inventory items, and we're tracking several hundred less mature, early experimental use cases internal to NASA. As those mature, we'll get them into the public inventory at the right time. We're cultivating communities, so we've got over 800 members in our data science and AI machine learning communities of practice. I said we're pushing hard on workforce development. So last year, we had hands-on learning sessions with over 250 folks learning to do AI machine learning in the cloud. We got a goal of boosting that to 600 this year. We're also leveraging a university program run by North Carolina State University, which is a nationwide AI upskilling academy. We worked with IT security and cloud providers across NASA to make AI machine learning services available in key clouds from Google, Microsoft, and Amazon. We are working with data stewardship and data operations, which are new organizations to grow data pipelines. We're doing outreach via NASA-wide knowledge spaces, iterative workshops. So we've got a data science summit NASA-wide next week. We had 2 AI ethics workshops last summer, and we're doing transformation talks, and we've had many AI machine learning transformation talks NASA-wide over the past couple of years. As I said, we're adapting via cloud providers, and we brought on a new hire to streamline this process, and we're scaling by beginning to transition some of our transformation work into an OCIO supported data science function for those AI machine learning platforms. We're also working with our responsible AI officials to support discussions and development of responsible AI ethical considerations. To sum up, we're really trying to set the conditions for numerous AI machine learning adopters across NASA to thrive. They're doing the hard work, and our transformation efforts are to make it a little easier, more cost-effective, or more impactful. We're really connecting people, serving as a focal point and advocate, and providing training and tools. And we've worked with our transformation leaders to get great support with key NASA senior leaders. I would be happy to talk with anybody from other organizations to compare approaches or scars along the way. And I don't have my contact information on the slide, but it is in the overall application. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Ed. We really appreciate it. Next up, we have CSFC, TTC, TTCR, and theater projects presented by Brandon Stackpole. Over to you, Brandon.
Good morning. So first, I just want to say thank everyone for the opportunity to share the success stories. And it looks like my video is not working, but thank you for the opportunity to share the success stories for the commercial solutions for classified and multiple independent layers of security program within the Army, NetCom, and 7 Signal Command here at Fort Gordon. With me today, we have Mr. Stephen Middleton, Mr. Jeremy Vigna, and CW4 Jose Estrada, three of the primary leaders within this program. Giving our presentation will be Mr. Jeremy Vigna. Mr. Jeremy Vigna, over to you.
Okay, hey, good morning. Thanks for consideration. Everybody can see my slide here. So I'll be providing a short information brief on our commercial solutions for classified systems, multiple independent levels of security, and virtual desktop infrastructure services. And we're taking cool acronyms for that. That's a mouthful if anybody has any ideas. So we started this service as a pilot. Sort of a garage science experiment that was thrust into operations out of necessity during the COVID-19 pandemic. And our problem statement was the same as just about every government entity in commercial endeavor at the time. How do I operate remotely to complete our mission to defend our nation while protecting our people from the COVID-19 virus? And in the Army, how do I access classified information without bringing folks into the office and putting them at risk? And now that we realize what we have a new problem statement. How do we realize how we as IT service providers in the Army and cyber defenders defend our nation and meet the Army vision to provide a unified network to support multi-domain operations at the point of need? And so our contribution to answer those problems was integrating these three technologies: National Security Agency's Commercial Solution for Classified Systems Technologies, our multiple independent levels of security cross-domain solutions, and desktop virtualization through VDI. And these are all not new technologies. People in government agencies have been doing them all before, but the magic of us was our particular team integrating those out there and institutionalizing them for the Army to transform the way we access classified information. And so what we're doing now is providing mobile and remote access to both classified and unclassified networks, what we call SIPR and NIPR in the Army, over a single device, over both DoD and commercial networks, and then over both wired and wireless network transport. Short capability description of each. CSFC is NSA standards for meeting requirements for processing classified data using capability packages that allow us to use commercial off-the-shelf technology through a layered cybersecurity approach. And so the so what of that is it enables us to reduce costs or avoid costs associated with physical security measures, traditional security, special facilities, and then infrastructure dedicated to that classified network: router, switches, fiber, the General Services Agency's safes for physical security of classified information, and then military unique encryption equipment, which is usually temperamental. And then it allows us to remotely access classified data to protect the force from COVID-19. And then now it allows senior leaders on the road to use to access classified information while they're on temporary duty, whether in their home office, and then within the constraints of policy and user agreements and standards that we've established as part of this program. And so MILS is our cross-domain solution that allows us to access both unclassified and classified networks with a single device. And then the VDI, of course, is desktop virtualization, allows us mobility, security, flexibility, and management benefits, as well as the security of every time I establish a session with a desktop, I'm pulling the latest, most secure image. And then the biggest thing for us is when I'm remotely working, the data is not on the device itself. So if it's ever lost or stolen, the classified data is not on that. It's in our hosting environment. And then as the Army institutionalizes this through programs of record that pushes this everywhere, the Army is going to look to, of course, FedRAMP certified IL6 cloud service providers, right? Impact level 6 for secure cloud. And so next slide is here's a conceptual diagram. And so it shows the ability to connect from DoD networks, from commercial networks, wired and wireless, through our services to access both classified and unclassified networks from a single device. And then again, so what is hundreds of users, dozens of senior leaders around the globe can access classified and unclassified mobily, remotely from the point of need, wherever they are. And then our service is directly informing the Army's modernization programs for our classified network access over the next 7 years. We're informing risk management framework for NIST controls and accreditation, NSA approvals, cross-domain management approvals, the institutionalizing those processes. We've already had a cybersecurity inspection from our cyber protection brigade and got excellent scores. And we're institutionalizing the operations, the culture, the policy necessary to leverage this this transformational change. And then, of course, it's all done through the people, our outstanding soldiers, civilians, and trusted integrator contract team members that allow this to happen. So thank you for your consideration for this award nomination. Subject questions, that's all I have.
Thank you so much. That was excellent. Really appreciate it. Up next, we have the GSA Multiple Award Schedule Continuous Diagnostic and Mitigation Modernization Project Team. This is presented by Tyrese Jones, the Contracts Division 4 Director for the Office of IT Schedule Contract Operations within the Information Technology category of Federal Acquisition Services. Over to you, Tyrese. I see your screen, but I'm not hearing you yet.
Thanks, Kirsten. I think I was attempting to start the video as well as, okay, here we go. Awesome. And let's see. Give me one moment. And you are able to see the screen as well now, correct?
Looks good.
Okay. So thank you again for the introduction. I'm uber excited to present this team's effort for consideration underneath the IT modernization category for the GITEC Award. And if I can just, and to give you a sense of how we got here today, back in August of 2017, GSA and the Department of Homeland Security's Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, or CISA, joined forces to establish an acquisition solution in the form of a mass SIN to ensure continued support of their government-wide CDM program that was previously offered under the CDM Continuous Monitoring as a Service blanket purchase agreement that expired in 2018. Since the establishment of the CDM tool SIN, there has been continuous monitoring of its effectiveness and success. But last year, both agencies decided to formally review the SIN in hopes to increase its utilization. And through launching the formal review, with the project team's focus on leveraging innovative approaches and available emerging technologies, it supported GSA's objective of being a trusted IT acquisition source to federal customer agencies. But before going further into the project, I want to acknowledge the project team members that contributed to the success of this effort. The project team consisted of acquisition, technical, and program management professionals within CISA and GSA's IT category, acquisition IT services, and enterprise strategy management. And per the illustrated John Maxwell quote, this dynamic team certainly demonstrated their commitment to make the dream of both agencies a reality. And that was to establish an effective government-wide CDM tools solution. So of course there were challenges that we had to overcome. Federal agencies were having difficulty identifying and matching the offerings under the CDM tool SIN to their IT and cyber requirements. Since the mass SIN was not best in class designated by OMB, it wasn't able to meet the high objective of federal spend under management goals. As a result, it increased the risk of customers considering other government-wide acquisition solutions that did meet the high objective. And because the utilization of the SIN was not meeting the goals of both agencies, continuing the status quo was not beneficial for CISA or GSA. Also, the project team had to be mindful of the unique needs of both agencies, which included GSA's consolidation of the multiple award schedule program, which expanded the degree of effort and coordination required between internal and external stakeholders. Our journey to success heavily relied upon constant communication and engagement with all stakeholders. A survey using a request for information, or RFI, was published to formally receive feedback from industry and customer agencies. Feedback not only affirmed the project's team proposal to retire the MAS-SIN, but it also supported an interest to leverage emerging technologies in machine learning and automation. This led to the project's team's development of a special logo initiative. We were also able to release that unique logo earlier than expected, which proved beneficial in observing unaccounted for case studies of the initiative. So for example, we had originally expected the logo to only appear under the applicable hardware and software MAS-SINs. However, it was revealed that the logo was also appearing under our professional services SINs. So taking these new developments into account, the team adjusted its messaging and training to move forward with the MAS-SIN retirement this past June. And as you can see pictured in the bottom right, the new CDM logo is now available on our GSA Advantage platform and is tagged to approved CDM offerings. The impacts of the project's team success are federal agencies now have a new opportunity to use GSA's multiple award schedule to achieve their spend under management goals, as over 90% of the approved CDM offerings are now under best-in-class designated SINs. Also, the administrative workload and financial burden of CISA and GSA have been further reduced. The project team has also provided training to industry and federal acquisition communities to support a smooth transition to the new logo initiative. The project team and supporting staff continue to maintain their interagency collaboration through monthly testing and analysis to ensure approved cyber tools are distinguished with the special logo. We are so proud that our project's success contributes to the government-wide push of becoming a more smart government through the successful application and investment of emerging technologies combined with innovative strategic approaches. So thank you again for your time and consideration for this project for the GITEC Award under the IT modernization category, and feel free to reach out to me if you have more questions about this effort. Thank you again.
Thank you so much, Tyrese. We really appreciate that. Next up, we have NIBIN Enforcement Support System presented by Special Agent Christy Widener, the Firearms Operations Division at the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives. Over to you, Christy.
Thank you. Can you see my screen?
Not yet, but maybe give it a minute here. Looks like it's loading. And there you go. Perfect.
Very good. Thank you. Well, once again, my name is Christy Widener. I am the NIBIN Enforcement Support System product owner, and I'm also a special agent. And thank you guys for considering this nomination. I really appreciate it. And a lot of hard work has gone on with a lot of different people. And I'm going to name them out later in this presentation. But before I do, I want to give a little bit of a background on what NIBIN is. So NIBIN links ballistic evidence from one shooting event to another shooting event or a gun recovery. And as an ATF special agent, I got my first NIBIN lead or my first NIBIN hit about 9 years ago. And it linked a homicide that I was working along with a detective I was partnered with. And that linked to another shooting. It said that the same gun was used in the homicide I was looking at and also another shooting. But what I noticed, which is similar to here, what I noticed was that that same piece of evidence was also linked to another shooting, a third shooting. And this is a sample that I took from a real NIBIN packet, but I wanted to show you the complexity and what it really means to us, because that NIBIN lead was incredibly complex to read, because as you start to look at it, we now have the same exhibit I was talking about for my homicide linked to something, but that something from a different shooting altogether matched something else. And so when I talk about NIBIN and I look at this, these three different individual NIBIN leads, they come up with 4 different cartridge cases, 4 different ballistic evidence, pieces of ballistic evidence from 4 different shooting scenes. But when I really started to delve into it 9 years ago, I realized that how many different guns is this? This is actually all one gun. This is one firearm that was used in multiple different shooting events, sometimes in the same jurisdiction, sometimes cross-jurisdictionally. And I started to think back of like high school math. And if A equals B and B equals C, then A equals C. And can't I just lump these all together? And so like I had this thought about, you know, what we could do with NIBIN. And I call it, for me, my watershed moment with ATF. And I call it that because of 2 really distinct reasons. One is I realized this power that we had at our fingertips that's been around since the 90s with NIBIN. This investigative tool, it's what caused me to be able to identify my first shooter in the homicide. And that's what opened up the entire case for me. But it's evidence-led. It's founded in forensic science. And it's non-biased. This looks solely at the evidence. It doesn't know races. It doesn't know genders, sexes. It doesn't even know locations. All it knows is ballistic evidence matches each other. And that really led to the second half of the watershed moment, is that we've got this incredible tool, but I'd have to decipher through all of these. And this one sample here, there's actually 15 individual packets that are all 4 pages each. So as an investigator, just to understand this, I would have had to comb through 60 pages of ballistic material. And so when ATF asked if I would take on a new challenge and try to automate a process and give back to our communities, I said, absolutely. And I said it, I was naive. It was a lot harder of an endeavor than I ever expected. But the culmination of that is those 60 pages of ballistic material is now one list of events that are linked together ballistically by one firearm. We created this new field called a crime gun ID. It never existed in law enforcement before. We created this in order to lump all of these different ballistic material from different shooting scenes together in order for us to be able to give back. And when I put up here that automated NIBIN ingest increases efficiency, it does. Those hundreds of disparate spreadsheets, access databases, and other tracking mechanisms around the country became one system that was automated, and it was processed, it was organized, it was stored all together for anybody in the law enforcement community, particularly at the beginning for ATF to have access to. And we didn't just stop there, because a shell casing or a crime scene casing or a cartridge case from one scene matching something else is valuable, but we knew we would have to layer on top of that contextual data. The ballistic data is non-biased, it's very evidence-based, but we have to layer on top of narratives from shooting scenes and locations. We wanted to include detective information as a pointer system. And so we did all of this stuff. Nest is a SQL database, it's on the GovCloud, it's got the web-facing application with 2-factor authentication. And we did all of that just so we could give back one standardized packet of information to provide back to our law enforcement partners around the country. And so, you know, with that being said, I take you back to this very first NIBIN lead that I showed you at the beginning. This is a sample NIBIN lead, but we actually have 500,000 of these, over 500,000 of these valuable investigative leads that, in my opinion, were not being fully realized when we had to track them in disparate spreadsheets, when we had to do everything manually. So when I think about modernization and innovation, I think about really a business transformation. And on that front, we as the Nest team, we took an archaic, manual, and non-standardized NIBIN tracking process and turned it into an automated, efficient, value-add system. And this really enabled law enforcement to use the incredibly powerful, non-biased, evidence-based data to help investigate homicides and other shootings around the country. And I know that it's working. I know it's working because we've received countless narratives from around the country, from detectives, from ATF agents, from intelligence personnel, of how they use that NIBIN data that they found in Nest to identify and then arrest some of the most violent individuals those shooters plaguing our communities. And so on that note, I just want to say thank you. I want to say thank you first and foremost to my partner, Swati Deb. And then I also want to say thank you to my right hand, Ginny Brayton. We have a development team of David, Casey, Linda, Isaac, Rob, Lorraine, Bernard, Eric, Kahina, Ryan, Kyle. We have my support staff of Jennifer, Athena, and Alex. And then finally to ATF and our leadership to give me the opportunity to be able to create something innovative and unique and new and provide that back as a package for our law enforcement community to hopefully be able to arrest those shooters and get those convictions of the most violent individuals plaguing our country. So thank you once again for the nomination and for considering this nomination, and to my partners, my team. I think some of them are on the call today. So thank you all very, very much. This really goes out to you guys. I'm just a spokesperson for it at this point. It really goes back to that team that I mentioned a minute ago. So back to you, Kim.
Thank you so much, Christy. Thank you for sharing that with us. Next up, we have the CFOC Shape the Workforce Initiative presented by Eric Pobiel, the program analyst at OPM, and team members. Over to you, Eric.
Thank you very much. I'm just getting my video started here and I will set it up. Steve, can you hear or not?
I don't know if Steve can hear, but we can hear you.
Okay, wonderful. I don't know if Steve can speak or if he can hear, so I think I'm just going to take over from here. So I will get started here. So good morning. My name is Eric Popiel, and I'm a strategic foresight analyst at the U.S. Office of Personnel Management. It's a pleasure to present to you the ongoing Chief Financial Officers Council initiative to modernize the financial management workforce and ensure they are prepared, resilient, and adaptable to a complex and rapidly changing future environment. All 24 CFO Act agencies collaborated, participated, and contributed to the eventual plan that will impact 140,000 employees across the entire federal government. We leveraged foresight techniques, the traditional strategic planning methods. The community scanned the future horizon, designed plausible scenarios, identified opportunities, challenges, and strategic needs, and distilled the data, insights, and ideas into a bold and concise 10-year plan to transform the financial management workforce. Laying the foundation for the plan was rigorous academic research, a comprehensive horizon scan, and the application of a model designed at the University of Houston. While I won't go into all the details now, the research indicated that the two drivers that would most impact the future of the financial management workforce are data and technology. These two drivers were instrumental in how the steering committee and the committed volunteers imagined the future. The capstone product was approved and accepted by the full CFOC. The Office of Management and Budget chartered an executive steering committee to implement the plan, and the work began in earnest with more than 50 volunteers across all agencies, lending their knowledge, skills, and abilities. This innovative approach to studying the future is fully scalable and can be used to address similar challenges at any cross-agency council, like the Chief Information Officers Council, Chief Data Officers, or Chief Diversity Officers. The plan has already stood the test of time, is being used to drive change, and is making a difference in the financial management community. In addition, the Joint Financial Management Improvement Program, which includes the GAO Comptroller General and the OPM Director, was briefed on the initiative and is one of the sponsors, ensuring its continued implementation and success. You'll see in this presentation that the plan is driven by two key components of hard research and analysis just mentioned, data and technology. But this is more than a plan, it is actual results. I'd now like to turn it over to Evan Frawley, Director of Audit Management and Accountability of the General Services Administration, who will share with you some exciting initiatives underway to shape the financial management workforce of the future.
All right, thanks, Eric. And can you hear me? If you give me a little thumbs up there, we're good. All right. So very simply, we can't adopt our competencies for the future without having a workforce in that future. And we can't sit back and wait for them to come to us. We have to actively recruit the best and the brightest who have those future competencies and then ease their transition to the federal workforce. So how do we do that? First, we need to highlight the value of pursuing government employment, both a career fulfillment and the financial work-life benefits. And the brochure you see here is an example of this, and we can use it with any agency. And second, we need to establish relationships and recruit at a diverse group of the best institutions. Third, and we all know this, we need to make applying for these government jobs less arduous. So what have we done? We partnered with OPM and we successfully piloted government-wide announcements. So want to be a federal accountant? Apply once and any agency can dip into that cert and hire you. And lastly, the future competencies we're talking about, which have been validated by OPM, need to underpin all of our work. They give us a both demand signal for the type of person we want in that future workforce and a roadmap to develop our current 140,000 person workforce. So let me pass it now to Karen Dasuki, who is the Director of Financial and Accounting at Department of Energy, to give you an update on another exciting part of this initiative. Karen, over to you.
Thanks, Evan. So last month, we launched another promising result, an initiative, the Massive Open Online Course Tool, also more commonly known as MOOC. The MOOC is just like Netflix or what do you call it? HBO Max, where CFO Council learners can binge on a data analytics or data science track anytime, anywhere, and even on their iPhones or Android phones. The course content includes the same skills the HR promotes, and it's featured here today. Example coursework ranges from coding in R and Python, data visualization with Tableau, to advanced coursework with deep neural networks. At the end of the day, the CFO Council community will be future-proof, ready to transform raw data to information and knowledge, and real deal leveraging data as a strategic asset. So with that, I'm going to turn it to Steve. That I'm hoping he can get access to his.
Can you hear me now?
Awesome. Yes.
Very good. Well, thank you. Thank you, Karen. In addition to identifying future skills for the workforce, the CFO Council understood the need to guide and train the current workforce to better empower them with the information needed to advance their careers. However, it was our judgment that the standard training suite of available career guidance and training options didn't keep up with the fast-paced world and was not adaptive enough to our workforce operating in a remote hybrid environment. Nor are they focused on implementing a government-wide solution. An executive steering committee chartered group studied this challenge and landed on a unique solution for our 140,000 financial management professionals across the federal government. They designed an online portal that would provide detailed employee career guidance tailored by job series and GS level, and in an interwoven fashion, it establishes a private-public partnership with leading upskilling vendors in the form of a linked and tailored training marketplace that is integrated with career guidance. And better yet, if it's successful, this pilot effort could be cheaply expanded to include larger segments of the federal government. This unique approach stands apart from the traditional learning management systems in that it doesn't require substantial funds, time, and risk to implement. It's inherently agile, and that it allows the government to frequently update the career guidance and change it as often as necessary. The visibility of vendors' offerings gives them a natural incentive to provide updated courses and content, all without requiring the complex purchasing arrangements. The pilot effort required very little funding to implement. It's slated to go live in early fiscal year 23 and has been identified as a key project within the President's management agenda. I'll now turn it back over to Eric to close us out.
Thank you, Steve. But a plan is not worth the paper it's printed on unless it is sustainable, adaptable, and produces actual results. The CFOC recognized that the future would change and they must be ever vigilant and anticipate potential challenges and opportunities. They also recognize that even though significant rigor was applied to generating the plan, they didn't have all the answers and more work would be needed to ensure it stood the test of time. A plan to challenge assumptions, reimagine the future, analyze the environment, and generate additional strategies was put into place. In 2024, the CFOC expects to re-engage the foresight and strategic planning cycle to again look at the financial management workforce and ensure that it is ready for whatever the future may hold. Thank you for your time and attention. I personally want to thank Evan Farley, Mike Wetclow, Erica Gaddy, Karen Dasuki, Steve Kuntz, Dennis Cronin, and Ben Fix for all of their hard work, and then the nearly 50 plus and almost 100 plus volunteers working on this project. Thanks again. Please, thank you for your consideration, and please don't hesitate to reach out to any of us if you have additional questions.
Thank y'all so much. All right, next up we have the Learning Space Course Developers Certificate presented by Jeffrey Kwiatkowski, the Chief of Digital Learning and Knowledge Management at the Peace Corps.
Thank you, everybody. What a great group of projects. I'm thrilled to be here on behalf of the Peace Corps, specifically the Office of Management and our staff learning development crew. My name is Jeff Kwiatkowski, and as you can see here, we're advancing workforce innovation through a wonderful program called the Learning Space Course Developer Certificate. I'd like to tell you a little bit about that here. Sorry about that. The screen share. Is my screen shown now?
Yes, it is.
Okay, sorry about that. All right. First of all, for those of you who aren't aware of the Peace Corps, we're a really awesome federal agency founded in 1961 by President Kennedy. We work around the world with interested countries, bringing training and technical assistance. We help to promote a better understanding of Americans in those countries and with the people that we work. And we also help to bring a better understanding of the peoples abroad back home to the United States. We work in over 60 countries around the world, and we have a volunteer service model which has put 240,000 volunteers have served during the history of the Peace Corps. We are supported by about 3,500 staff, and approximately 2/3 of those are working overseas in these countries. We have a unique history over the last few years where we've, like many of the agencies and people around the world, have been affected by the COVID pandemic, where we had to, specifically the Peace Corps, evacuate our entire volunteer force of over 7,000 volunteers in a matter of 2 weeks. Needless to say, in March of 2020, that was a major shock to the system, and it forced a lot of rethinking about how we might serve our mission better through the pandemic and beyond. That led us to build out this Learning Space Course Developer Certificate. Learning Space, it has been part of an amazing story in the Peace Corps. We are a training, a knowledge dependent and a training centered, a learning rich ecosystem in the Peace Corps. You can imagine, with so many volunteers coming into and out of service in a relatively compressed timeline, as well as our staff who rotate in and out quite frequently, we have a great need for learning and effective learning. And so we had been building up a shift away from or blending with the traditional in-person training model to leveraging online distance learning, digital, more effectively, especially more intensively over the last 5 years. And that was accelerated even more so, obviously, by the pandemic. We created a program that recognized that in order to get our workforce actually not just being consumers of training courses that are being disseminated from the center, to be course creators, course owners, to expand at scale, we created this program, which has really been an amazing story. It's essentially an 8-week blended course that involves a cohort of staff coming into it. It has a mix of in-person live sessions combined with self-directed, combined with tutorials and applied work supported by mentors. We are really, through this, have been able over the last 3 years really to broaden the scale and the scope. We've run this now 5 times, 5 different cohorts. And we've found that some of the pillars of what has driven success with this training program, this initiative, is really the fact that we've structured it as team-based. So there are teams around the world in our 60 countries, as well as headquarters staff that are working together, that enter the course together, that go through it together. It's focused on an applied project. So a challenge, whether that is around training medical officers or a programmatic initiative directed towards volunteers. It has touched on all facets of Peace Corps operations in a very focused way, so that at the outcome of the 8 weeks, you actually have an applied project, a course project. And perhaps most critically, it's supported by dedicated mentors. And these are voluntary initiatives led by our staff around the world. And here's a picture of this growing community. This is really, when we talk about workforce innovation, I can't overstate how important the growing community of these mentors has been. And you can kind of get the indication that we started off in the first cohort back in 2020 with a start of mentors that were ready, that had already been working in the system, developing courses, creating and learning space. And that grew over time. Every cohort that we ran, there were more and more staff that were then turning around and training others in a future cohort. And so this mentor community has continued to grow and has really, again, anchored the workforce innovation in the sense that the innovators are anchored and the creators are anchored everywhere. There is decentralized ownership of not only the platform, but also the processes, the course creation process, and the ownership of the content. Here's just a quick snapshot of the number of folks that have gone through this so far. This is touched, not just touched, this is actually an involved program that has engaged close to 900 participants. These are staff around the world in many different disciplines. That's about a quarter of our global workforce. That's a significant number of folks who have been trained up to feel more confident in their skills to be content creators, to intelligently and creatively blend online distance digital tools with traditional in-person and creating great projects. Really, these are wonderful, in many cases, learning experiences. Some of the outcomes that we're really excited about are, number one, staff engagement and professional growth. During a pandemic, you can imagine, with a lot of folks that were feeling disconnected, work had changed. In many cases, volunteers were not there. And so this program served as a way to engage staff in a very productive, forward-looking, meet-the-moment way. It has been regarded through our recently run learning needs assessment across the agency as the professional development experience that garnered the highest satisfaction level of any professional development experience across the Peace Corps. Secondly, we've seen collaboration expand dramatically across not only teams within an office working together in breaking down silos that in many cases they've never broken down before, but they started through this course working together or supporting each other in their respective course projects. That has also led with these courses and with these new staff skills to operational efficiencies. That is saving the taxpayer dollars, that is helping the Peace Corps to create, you go down to the improved quality of courses and the continuum of learning. It has really helped to energize and infuse a continuous improvement in the way we are training in the creation of learning experiences, not just one-off courses. And finally, this other piece of it is the visibility that this course and the system learning space has created for our training initiatives, where now more courses are seen by others, more courses are shared, more templates are being created that can be reused within shared themes, shared topics across our countries. So there's a wonderful knock-on effect. I'm going to let some other people tell you about why this has made a difference.
It has been just a pure joy to get to work in this project. You cannot imagine how our mentor meetings were. Like, we would be learning so much. Everyone was raising the questions from the teams, and we would all just continue being inspired and learning more and more together, and then like spreading that throughout all the different groups that we were working with.
This course mobilized posts unlike anything else before. It has inspired us to be creative and innovative. It has boosted our motivation and has provided an opportunity for team building.
One of the things I've really enjoyed seeing as this program came together is how staff of all levels are collaborating and problem solving across countries, across regions, between posts and regions. And that is just a beautiful thing to see happening. We have so much talent around the world, and seeing that talent step forward and help us all move together has been an incredible inspiration.
I think learning space became like a new love and passion for embracing the change.
I would like to highlight how this course has served to mobilize staff from different units at Post to learn and to explore with learning space.
You know, when we think about sort of design thinking, sort of bringing people together across different expertise and from different offices really has the power to push us all forward, because we come at things differently. So that creativity, that innovation, and the new skills that we're learning, it's just not about the skill, it's about the way that we're working and how we're engaging each other. And it will continue to really transform us into a more effective and equitable agency.
And finally, I just want to thank the core team. This is a story of a lot of creativity and dedication. These are some of the primary characters in that story, responsible for the story and the impact. I also want to thank our leadership, our CEO, Spawn, our director, Carla Wesley of the Office of Staff Learning and Development. We wouldn't be able to do this without an enabling environment, to have proven, to have taken a chance and to grow something that we feel has made a true difference in workforce innovation at the Peace Corps. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Next up, we have the Tradewin team presented by Bonnie Evangelista, the Tradewin Execution Lead for Plans, Budget, and Acquisitions at the Department of Defense. Over to you, Bonnie.
Thank you very much. All right. Right, my name is Bonnie Evangelista. I'm with the Chief Digital and AI Office, Artificial Intelligence Office, CDAO. My former organization was the Joint Artificial Intelligence Center, the GITEC, and we've been reorged into this CDAO organization with a couple of the other enablers within the department, so that we can be working together for the very important mission of like delivering AI, digital, and analytic data analytic capabilities across the Department of Defense. So we have a huge problem in the DoD. Dr. Adam Grant, I think, said it best in the Senate Armed Services Committee in his when he was testifying in April of 2021. He said DoD's culture is a threat to national security. And what exactly does he mean by that? I'm going to try and talk about that. And then I'm also going to talk about how the Tradewin initiative is trying to address both the cultural problem and while serving mission. So, like I said, we are part of the CDAO. The JAIC initially started the Tradewin initiative, but is now carried over into the CDAO. The primary core team is myself, Colonel Scott Helmore, and Miss Stephanie Wilson. We are supported by a lot of other individuals that are not on this slide, but we are the core team that are trying to get momentum under this Tradewin initiative. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about our story and a little bit of how we came to be, how Tradewin came to be. It's not a long story. In 2018, the JAIC was established. It was congressionally mandated, and there was a little bit of growing up that the organization had to do. And it wasn't until 2021 when the first Tradewin project award was made. We're trying to tackle both a cultural and a mission problem. So from our perspective, there's a lot of things going on right now. The first is there is too much process and red tape. So from an acquisition or procurement, so meaning when the government is trying to buy goods and services, especially when it comes to emerging technologies such as especially as it relates to AI and things like that, there is a lot of bureaucracy and a lot of hierarchy that are kind of in the way of making things happen when they need to happen in a changing and volatile environment. So things like long procurement lead times, high barriers to entry, and antiquated process mediums. What I mean by that is the government is primarily still using paper, spreadsheets, PowerPoints. There's not very much automated business workflows that are helping us do our jobs. And then the second piece is most of the time we're not focused on problem solving in the government. We're focused on, I need a person to do a job instead of like, here's my problem, can someone help me solve the problem? Some reasons we see that is because many times we're basing decisions on confidence ratings, like when we're not actually looking at actual data. And because the department is so compartmentalized, it's very difficult to work together. And a lot of this, in my opinion, is spurred by the lack of data access across the department. So there is no way for industry to understand the DoD, the Department of Defense domain, because we have so many firewalls to access data. So in consideration, I shared a few stories of how we're trying to tackle both of these problems. I'm not going to talk about all of the Tradewind enablers. Tradewind is more of a vision. It's not a thing. We consider the Tradewind initiative to be more of like a connector in terms of providing, enabling, whether it's contracting paths or providing a collaborative ecosystem to work together. So some of these stories that I'm going to talk about, I'm going to showcase on the acquisition and procurement side where we think we won, and then on the mission side where we think we're winning on the AI front. So let me skip ahead. So my first story, I'm going to talk about something that's near and dear to my heart, AI-powered contract writing. So I just mentioned we're spending too much time on things that can be easily automated, and procurement lead times can be anywhere between 6 months and 2 years. So we are investing in developing a prototype that actually leverages AI technology in order to streamline that significantly. We're not just looking to move the needle a little bit, we're looking for game-changing type of business processes. So this slide is highlighting the actual procurement process. I want to highlight more what's going on in the actual project. So when we awarded the project, two of the big things that happened, and this was all enabled under Tradewind, we are able to try new structures for project planning. So one of the things we did here is we established build boundaries, and the prototype developer is not going to get paid until they deliver the build. That is very novel for the government. Usually, a lot of contractors are not used to that type of structure. So under Tradewind, we're able to pilot and experiment with new approaches like this and see if we can scale it. Additionally, we tried an incremental development approach where we invested a little bit of money up front, and we said, we want you to just show us that the AI can develop what we call a call to industry or a solicitation, and then we'll give you more money. And those are two game-changing ways on the procurement side. On the mission side, I love what it says here, conquer the time suck. So contracting is a huge time suck for people in my field. So we're using natural language processing plus business automation to give us time back to solving real problems. And another cool thing about the project is industry is also going to get to play a part in this because we're incorporating an industry proposal builder into the system. Story 2 is more on the mission side of my organization. So there's a lot of people in my organization that need data and need data visualizations. So this project was called Dynamic Campaigning. Under Tradewind, we were able to quickly award 2 pilot projects with different solutions for 60-day pilots. Doing concurrent paths like that should be a staple in the department as we're assessing. It's not, so we're proving out the concept. And then secondly, both are purely commercial products. The pilot started in a commercial environment, and it is now, it was previously assessed back in April and is going to move into behind the government firewall into a beta release. So we're impacting mission, we're trying new procurement processes under Tradewind, and hopefully going to reach decision advantage with this product as well. The struggle at the Office of Secretary of Defense level is they can't correlate the data they need to optimize decision making at their levels. These are already commercial solutions available that are already doing data correlation and ontologies and structuring data and things like that. We're leveraging what's already in the commercial industry, bringing it into our environment in a very incremental fashion. Again, all of this was enabled under our contracting paths in Tradewind and with the teams in Tradewind that are providing and facilitating the workflows to happen. My last story is an interesting one. This is where, instead of the top-down approach that I was just talking about, where people at the highest echelons within DoD need data and need to make decisions, this is more at the unit level. This is where we're impacting the unit. So we enabled a very, very quick prototype challenge so that we could pilot like an entirely new business model where at the unit level, they have no way to quickly develop and integrate new software so that they can understand soldier readiness data. So with this business model, we're working with a third-party environment manager, and they're going to help set the conditions necessary in order to have onboarding and offboarding of expertise in terms of software developer expertise or data engineers and stuff like that. And we're doing it right at the edge with the units, which is a little uncommon because a lot of software development and data stuff is happening top down. So this is a bottoms up approach that is impacting soldiers at the edge. So those were just quick summaries of a few of our Tradewind stories, but I want to leave you with kind of the so what factor. So in our Tradewind escalation, just looking at some of the numbers here, you can kind of see the impact that we Tradewind as a whole are having. I only shared a few of the stories here, but we have almost $88 million of stories here where we're trying to make an impact, and we're doing some of the things that I mentioned with some of the previous stories. We're trying to provide an implementation vehicle where we apply and assess new and innovative acquisition processes. And so while we're winning, or while we're trying to win and gain momentum on the culture problem, we're also impacting mission at the same time. And that mission specifically speaks to artificial intelligence. That's one of our primary focuses aside from data and digital solutions. So with that, that's Tradewind. Thank you again. I want a special shout out to all of the Tradewind team. They're amazing. We couldn't have done what we did between May and September without leveraging some of the novel business practices that we've been learning about over the past year and a half. So thank you for your consideration.
Thank you so much, Bonnie. Our moderator, Kirsten Patton, just like Fred predicted earlier this morning, was a victim to the storm, so she got booted off. But up next, we do have Adriana Sanchez from Miami-Dade County presenting on their automation of the Miami International Airport. Adriana, take it away.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Adriana Sanchez. It is my pleasure to present today the Miami-Dade County ITD, automation of the Miami International Airport, Part 139 inspections. These are the members of the team, some of them from Miami-Dade County ITD, some from ESRI, and others from the Miami International Airport MIA. I would like to start this presentation explaining that major airports like MIA need a Part 139 certificate as a requirement for the FAA. Among the requirements of this certificate is the daily inspections of the airfield. At the time of this project, these inspections were performed and cataloged using paper data collection. The project is based on an application pre-designed by ESRI that was being used by another airport and adapted to MIA specific conditions. This presentation has been organized using the GITEC questions. So the first question was about the high impact and contribution to mission outcomes. As I am showing on the presentation, the paper data collection with the inspection form and the map were transformed to an application that have dashboards, that have a survey for the data collection of the unsatisfactory discrepancies on the field. That's the way that they call the issues. And the role of our team was diverse. First, it was a point of connection between MIA and ESRI. The county's ESRI license was used for this project. As a result of the team collaboration, it was possible to automate inspections that were done manually and on paper. Now the visualization of the inspections are real time, and the reliability of the data has been increased. In a later version, we have done automatic emails and text messages to alert from inspections in case of fire discrepancies or if the inspections were not done on time. In regards to creativity and innovation, we have used ESRI technologies for these projects, and among of the most used applications that they have created, like ESRI Story Map, the ArcGIS dashboards, Survey 1 through 3. And during the data collection, we have also collected statistics that have been later used to analyze data like the foreigner object debris, and we are showing in the slides the hot spot map to show concentration of these problems. Also, a 3D cube analysis with the XIM viewer of the analysis of the same data during time. And it has been a positive impact, the faster access that now the airport has to this data and the inspections, and of course, they can monitor better the progress of the solution on the airfield. In the last questions, there were, is the partnership, it's about partnership and how we have actively collaborated with other internal and external organizations. And since from the beginning, we defined different roles for the member of the team. ESRI was creating the first version of the application that later on was updated by our team on Miami-Dade County ITD. The information was always shared in shared folders and in ArcGIS online collaboration groups. We had the 1 or 2 meetings weekly to review the progress of the project and to discuss any challenges. And also the Miami-Dade County ITD Geospatial Technology facilitated implementation and provided training to 60 MIA inspectors in the field. With that, thank you very much for the opportunity of participating in this event, and I wish you all a great afternoon.
Thank you so much, Adriana. That was amazing. We really appreciate it. Next up, we have MAR for Cyber and Chaos Projects, presented by Chris Kerrigan, the Program Manager, COPSA at the Marine Corps. Chris, over to you.
Thank you. Can you just give me a thumbs up that you can see my screen?
Looks great.
Okay, awesome. Okay, good afternoon. Thank you for this opportunity on behalf of my team, Mr. Craig Richings, Major Teal Peterson, and Colonel Tom Dono. As stated, my name is Chris Kerrigan. I am the product manager for the U.S. Marine Corps MARCOR Syscom Archimedes program, which consists of cyber situational awareness platforms and tools consisting of the Chaos Big Data Platform and the Security Incident Event Manager, or the MSIEM. There we go. Our mission challenge consisted of a lack of collaboration with service and mission partners, a lack of metrics to establish a programmatic baseline, disparate processes for critical mission functionality like data requirements, ingest and storage and transport decision mechanisms, which led to lengthy and abnormal timelines that did not meet mission needs. 8 months ago, Mr. Craig Richings sought rapid methods and contract strategies, as well as sifted through funding resources to rapidly implement a contract to help manage the BDP Chaos program. Through his efforts, we were able to assemble a contract team of subject matter experts, and in conjunction with the current engineering contract team, we were able to assemble an action plan. Under the leadership of Major Teal Peterson, we started with a gap analysis that tied sensing strategies, DoD strategies, and the Cyber Command guidance that led us to a path for holistic process improvement. The initial impacts that we've seen have been an increase in 500% in data sources ingested, a newly executed change control board for all baseline change considerations, duplicative processes reduced, and a massive increase in the user base. The improvements also unlock our cyber capabilities to process over 1,000 cybersecurity related data flows, as well as over 100 data visualization and analytic tools. Our OV1 shows our intent to take new and existing contract vehicles, receive requirements input, implement action from our cloud team for new application requirements, harden security for ATO mandates, continue to ingest data through our data governance processes, and ultimately give the user community tools within the Chaos BDP. Our data plan has been our main focus, with new data requirements coming from our Chaos and MSIEM user community, providing us an opportunity to correctly map our ingest policies and processes. Our ingest processes have led to a rapid increase in over a petabyte of data availability, with that amount rapidly increasing daily, with 8 petabytes likely expected within just a few years. Dashboards have been created for team member and senior level monitoring and management. These dashboards listed provide real-time updates that assist with stakeholder and customer communications, as well as management of risk management and risk reduction. The newly executed data governance process, as seen in the diagram, has been communicated through the Marine Corps service, with acceptance and adoption coming from the Marine Corps Service Data Officer. The data process now supports the DoD Chief Data Officer's strategy of making our data visible, accessible, understandable, linked, trusted, interoperable, and most importantly, secure. This will ensure data consistency among the Marine Corps networks through a valid, reliable, and well-managed data catalog. Our overall impacts: they have provided value to the MAR4 Cyber Ops community from improved data consistency, immediate increase in capability integration, storage optimization through reduction of duplication, process improvement from DevSecOps and data governance to requirements acceptance and use case development, a decrease in the time of data ingest, and finally, one of the more important impacts, an enhanced collaboration amongst Marine Corps teams, as well as new collaboration across all joint cyber command and control components, which happens to improve the security posture of the entire joint force. And lastly, managing thousands of data sources aggregated into multiple petabytes of stored data that is processed by hundreds of analytics to find threats to the Marine network has been a huge cross-organizational challenge. Led by Colonel Tom Dono, he found that the key to solving this challenge and improving the defensive cyber posture of the Marines has been a team-based approach using exceptional human talent paired with a clear vision, appropriate governance of tasks, in innovative technologies like the BDP. Finally, a big thanks to the Enlighten and Parsons team that have collectively and collaboratively made this happen. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Chris. Next up, we have the GSA Fleet Team, presented by Christy Kingsland, Deputy Director, Office of Fleet Management, and the lead for the Zero Emissions Fleet Team at General Services Administration. Over to you, Christy.
Hi, everyone. Let me see if I can get my slides going. All right, and can you see that?
Sure can.
All right, thanks very much, and thanks, everyone. It's nice to be here with you today. Very much appreciate it. Like she said, I'm Christina Kingsland. I'm actually standing in for Crystal Philcox today, and I'm here to talk with you about what the federal fleet is doing to advance electrification across the federal fleet. So giving just a little bit of background, of course, our goals here are to drive down GHG emissions in the country. At a high in 2007, the US produced over 6 billion tons of CO2 emissions, and transportation represents the largest portion of that at about 27% in 2020. So that's, of course, why we're very focused on vehicles and why the federal government is leading by example to drive down GHG emissions, specifically from the federal fleet. Good news, grid is getting cleaner. We're seeing really good trends there. Over 80% of new capacity added to the grid in 2021 came from renewable sources. Wind and solar prices continue to decline. Both of these trends are expected to continue. Additionally, recent studies show that EVs produce significantly less emissions than gasoline, and the gap between electricity and gasoline is growing larger over time. All good news toward our goals here. There's a lot of opportunity across the federal government to advance that fleet electrification. Obviously, creating proactive policy is a critical element for the federal government to drive domestic manufacturing and strengthen our supply chains in the United States. And then also creating investment in infrastructure, because that infrastructure is so critical to the operation and successful deployment of electric vehicles. Now, we have here in the Federal Fleet Electrification Initiative a few really important goals that I'll highlight here in order to advance that electric vehicle market and be that government-wide example. And so a couple of the big goals that are driving that advancement is Executive Order 14037, which requires 50% of auto sales to be electric vehicles by 2030, or zero emission vehicles, I should say. And this already has a lot of support, with over half a dozen vehicle manufacturers already publicly stating that they can meet this goal and adding hundreds of billions of dollars of investment to achieve it. And then there's also Executive Order 14057, very close, which requires 100% of federal government light duty vehicle acquisitions to be zero emission vehicles by 2027. And then 100% of all government acquisitions to be ZEVs by 2035. Those are our primary goals that we're trying to meet and support the federal fleet through. Now, GSA is paving that road for the federal government to lead by example by creating a one-stop shop for the vehicles and charging infrastructure needed for federal agencies to transition to a zero-emission fleet. Here at GSA Fleet, we are the mandatory source for non-tactical federal vehicle purchasing. We also operate a non-mandatory vehicle leasing program that is worldwide It's full service. We have all-inclusive monthly and mileage rates. And then we also develop contracts, government-wide contracts for the charging equipment needed and ancillary services. Then we also have a sister organization within GSA, our Public Building Service, which owns or leases more than 8,800 real property assets nationwide for over 1.1 million federal employees. The Public Building Service provides project management and leadership for installing EV infrastructure in all federal spaces. They have government-wide contracts for that design, build, construction services that are required for EVSE projects. Now we're making strides, but of course there are many challenges to electrifying the federal fleet. GSA's mission is to find the solutions to help federal agencies overcome those challenges. So starting out with upfront costs, ZEVs can be 50% more expensive or even higher than their gasoline equivalents. At GSA, as I mentioned, we aggregate that demand of the federal government to drive down prices. The same is true on the charging infrastructure side by creating those government-wide contracts. We also work with agencies within their budget to maximize ZEV acquisitions. Model availability is something that's plaguing across the industry. We are all affected by the supply chain shortages, in particular chips. But what we're trying to get the federal government to do is get as many vehicles as we can, but focus on infrastructure first and keep it simple to electrifying the vehicles that are low-hanging fruit, where you have easier plug and play on charging infrastructure to build up the capacity and experience. And hey, while we have these long lead times to get vehicles here, take advantage of that time to get infrastructure ready. Then coordination and change. There's a huge cultural change that's really required across the federal government to adopt electric vehicles. A lot of this is new to our drivers. And so just getting experience is really critical. That goes back to focusing on infrastructure first and taking advantage of that low-hanging fruit, keep it simple, get the easy wins up front to help drive that cultural change in the right direction. The range anxiety is real, even though, the all-electric miles that most of the newer electric vehicles can drive today is leaps and bounds what it was 10, 15, 20 years ago. But that's still on the front of people's minds. Sharing success stories and providing numerous amounts of training is one of the significant roles that we at GSA take in that cultural change. Provide training on the vehicles themselves, how to charge, how to operate, what's different. And then lastly, infrastructure. This is a huge challenge for deploying across the entire country, and the federal government's no different. So as I mentioned here at GSA, we've set up contracts to ensure hardware, construction, and ancillary services are available to all agencies. One really important thing to highlight is that we're requiring charging infrastructure providers, EVSE providers, to meet federal cybersecurity requirements. So GSA is sponsoring the achievement of those necessary certifications, FedRAMP in most cases, for those participating suppliers. Then these companies can use those certifications across the government. Plus, the country itself benefits by having a large swath of companies that are more focused on security, as states and private entities are blanketing the country with EVSE. There's a lot to celebrate, but a lot of challenges still to overcome. And while we talk about celebration, I wanted to hit on a few things that, few big accomplishments that we've had in the last year. And we just closed out fiscal year 22 in the federal government. And last year we offered 65 unique ZEV models, which was a 191% increase from the prior fiscal year. We also increased the number of ZEVs acquired by the federal fleet. We ordered 3,567 ZEVs for federal agencies, both for their agency-owned vehicles and for those that they lease from GSA. This was just under 10% of all of our orders, which was compared to about 5% in the public sector so far this year. Our target for fiscal year 23 is 23%. So a big jump there too, in addition to providing those streamlined solutions for charging infrastructure. And with that, that'll be it. Thanks again for the time. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Christina. Up next, we have the National Artificial Intelligence Institute presented by Dr. Gil Alterovitz. at the Veterans Health Administration, United States Department of Veterans Affairs. Gil, over to you.
Hi, my name is Michael Kim. I'm the Chief of Staff of the National Artificial Intelligence Institute at U.S. Department of Veteran Affairs. I'm covering for Dr. Altervitz, who has the conflict with the White House meeting right now. Can you guys see my screen? Not a super expert at this, so I will try.
I was going to say, you're not, Bill, but yeah.
I look a little different. Yeah, sorry about that.
No,
can you
okay.
see my Can you see my presentation?
That's great.
Okay, fantastic. Again, thank you for allowing me to present. It's an honor and privilege to be here today alongside so many fantastic presentations. I have a short video. Hopefully the audio will work on this. Let's see if this works. I don't hear audio. Do you guys hear audio?
I do not.
Okay. Well, we'll just go through it. And in the interest of time, I will not try to fix it here. I want to say a shout out to any Marine Corps service people or veterans. Happy Marine Corps birthday today, and happy Veterans Day tomorrow for all our service members and veterans. So our mission here at the NI, or the National Artificial Intelligence Institute at the VA, is really about the veteran, taking care of those who served. And our vision is to lead the way in trustworthy artificial intelligence as a global institute for research, implementation, policy, and collaboration that enhances outcomes for the veterans, their families, and beyond. And what we're doing at the NI is really to push the envelope and be thought leaders and innovative and advance artificial intelligence in the benefit of the veterans and the workforce that care for them. I'm going to focus on several different projects that we work on, not necessarily a deep dive in one, but one that we're particularly proud of is our leadership in trustworthy artificial intelligence, which I know impacts many agency officials on this call. Many of the people on this call are aware of the Executive Order 13960 in promoting the trustworthy use of artificial intelligence. And our team, including under the leadership of Dr. Altervitz, played an important role in the writing and shaping of that executive order. And we've done many actions to help promote the trustworthy use of artificial intelligence, in addition to the recently published Blueprint for an AI Bill of Rights. The Blueprint AI Bill of Rights, which was published a few weeks ago, takes the foundation and anchoring of trustworthy artificial intelligence, first established by 13960, and takes it a step farther to really improve equity, make sure that the design development of AI and automated systems really is consistent with our American values and our civil liberties. The work that we have done also as Dr. Altervitz is our co-chair in leading the VA's response to an interagency policy committee that is focused on moving the needle forward in trustworthy artificial intelligence. And I could speak to some of those projects that we've done. For example, we have developed a novel AI research protection questionnaire that has been integrated into the Institutional Review Board, which is shown to make an impact safeguarding veterans and protecting their privacy and safety. For example, our pilot that is initiating across our National Artificial Intelligence Network has been able to protect concrete veterans, like real cases in the field, on industry-sponsored studies that were actually approved in other areas, showing that we can make an impact and lead a trustworthy artificial intelligence in the agency. Furthermore, we share our best practices and collaboratively with our partners. And our interagency bodies focus on trustworthy artificial intelligence. We spearheaded a council comprised of responsible AI federal agency officials to share best practices and to help all our partners do the right thing and making sure that artificial intelligence is done in a responsible fashion. I spoke to our National Artificial Intelligence Network. So the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs is the largest integrated healthcare system in the United States. And with that comes a large diversity and a large patient population to serve, with nearly 9 million veterans and over 1,400 medical centers, which means big data. How do we leverage that to the benefit of the VA and our veterans we serve? By using the network and establishing centers of excellence focused on the strategic alignment to the National Artificial Intelligence Institute, we can much more rapidly progress innovation and alignment to the mission at hand. For example, our NIA network is currently at four sites: Washington, D.C., Kansas City, Long Beach, California, and Tampa. And we're actively engaged with more and more centers that want to be part of this team. We led through a collaborative effort, we have partnered with over 20 different offices in VA to develop our strategy to making sure that all stakeholders have equity and provide their input on where VA needs to go to advance artificial intelligence. We work with subject matter experts across the board, whether it's in precision oncology, whether it's radiology, and what have you. As medicine is a very complicated field, we make sure that we're partnering with the experts to make sure that what we develop makes sense, is effective, and is trustworthy. We are helping to advance talent in the agency as well. We were the first to classify the 1560 data scientist series, as many other people on this call probably have done, and really looking at what does it take to make sure that we get the talent we need brought into the VA, because human capital and the talent are our most important resource. I spoke earlier about the pilot, so I won't touch upon that here. One project that we're particularly proud of and wanted to share is our digital command center. So as I shared earlier, how healthcare is incredibly complicated with potentially thousands of different patient encounters and procedures and employees. How do we take an approach similar to an air traffic control tower or a NASA command center, where we have all the data using artificial intelligence, real-time data streams, and having the right people in the right room to make those decisions, all congregated in the same area. And we've developed a pilot that is now scaling across VA at our AI network sites. Currently, we're expanding to all four and just entered a phase two stage in our project development. Really anchored around 2 to 3 main pillars of effort. One is making sure that we could coordinate care for the veteran, because care coordination for patients can be fragmented, where a veteran might have to call 9 different doctors and nurses to get their care. How do we consolidate and make that efficient as possible, to making sure that no one slips through the cracks? And the second is really focused on inpatient care, from admission to discharge. How do we drive that efficiency? How do we drive that safety and that patient experience? And the third and fourth pillars of the effort include integration of real-time data, so you can have real data to make actionable results at the point of care. And last is integration of artificial intelligence into the work streams, into the real-time data streams, so we can provide the best information and the best recommendations to our staff and our patients. Lastly, I'll talk on one of our initiatives, and I'm going to call out our partners in this. While the VA has led the project management and the funding for this, we have not done it alone. We have worked with our partners and collaboratively, including the Naval Postgraduate School, Department of Navy, Department of Air Force, NASA, Department of Labor, Health and Human Services, on developing a platform that could be scalable and repeatable across any agency in terms of training, developing, and certifying our workforce. How do we do that in a collaborative fashion? So we used our technology sprints as a mechanism to do that. For people who are not familiar with our technology sprints, they're kind of like Shark Tanks, where you pose a problem statement or a challenge, and you have companies compete to solve that challenge. And right now, our tech sprint right now is under competition with some Fortune 500 companies, ranging from your Amazons and your Coursera's, competing to try to develop the premier training and certification and a recruitment platform for the Department of Veteran Affairs, but also possibly something that could serve other agencies and they could benefit from as well. So that's it. I know it was only 4 to 6 to 7 minutes, so I didn't want to take too much time. Thank you again for this opportunity.
Thank you so much, Dr. Kim. It was great to have you here. Next up, we have the Cloud Security Team FedRAMP program presented by Charles Solomon Jackson, the Cloud Security Program Manager and Lead at the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs. Charles, over to you.
Oh, can you hear me?
I can.
And can you see my screen?
Not yet. I can see you though.
You can see me, but not my screen. Shucks. So sorry. How about this? What about now?
I can see the screen that was up previously. Maybe there's someone on the events team that could help out. There we go.
Here we go.
Things happening.
Hey everyone, my name is Charles Solomon Jackson. I go by SJ. I'm the program manager lead for the VA Cloud Security Program. Our director currently right now is Rob Disco underneath ISRM. What I would like to discuss with you guys today is the VA Cloud Security Program, how it came about, what we do, and some of our success stories that we've had this year. Our cloud security program was originally established by our director, Royce Allen, in 2018. Her main goal was to try to align the VA policy with the executive orders and other cloud federal guidance that existed, and try to identify any gaps that may be in the VA policy. After we reviewed the VA policy and compared it to those other guidelines, we actually recognized that we needed to have our own VA cloud policy, which led us to develop the VA Directive and Handbook 6517, which outlines all the roles and responsibilities and requirements to meet the FedRAMP program requirements. We also developed a couple of security design patterns that covered certain areas in the authorization process, as well as applications for, like, example, APIs, continuous monitoring, zero trust, and TIC 3.0. As another effort to ensure that the VA maintained compliant, we also developed the architecture analysis group. And what they were responsible for was coming in, assessing the architecture, making sure that all the connections and all the components that comprised of a cloud-based system were being assessed. And that allowed us to be able to provide a recommendation to the authorizing official to be able to make a better and a sound risk-based decision. One of the other groups that was developed was our continuous monitoring program. We refer to it as CONMON. That's led by Martin DeLeo, our CONMON lead, and his responsibilities are to ensure that the VA maintains operational visibility, insight into any change or any incidents that may occur. I'm not sure if everyone's aware, but when we're dealing with the cloud products, we don't actually own the product themselves, and we have to really rely on the vendor to do their part of the shared responsibilities. The way we ensure that those responsibilities are being taken care of, we host a monthly meeting with each vendor, and we go over all the cloud requirements post-authorization to ensure that everything is being met. Currently, right now, we have 314 systems in the continuous monitoring phase. 65 of those we host monthly calls with, meaning that we're on calls almost every day, at least two calls every day a month. Since we developed and implemented this program, we've seen a significant increase in level of compliance. We were rating systems and they would come out in the yellow or the red. And since we've developed the program and been more engaged, we've been able to hold those stakeholders accountable, causing our view in the security posture to actually look better in light. And so to accompany that, we had a RACI that was developed in a procedural guide to kind of walk everyone through what their requirements were. The cloud, there was a myth that, everything was going to be the responsibility of the vendor, and that's so far from the truth. There's actually a lot of shared responsibilities there. So it was imperative that we actually took the time to actually break that out for everyone as well. So now that you understand a little bit about what we do, let's talk about our accomplishments that we've experienced just this year alone. There's a lot of them, but I'll just break them down to these two. As everyone's aware, and you've heard throughout the other presentations, the VA is a large organization, and we have a huge footprint within the cloud community. We actually use about 85 FedRAMP systems or 85 cloud products. 234 additional products that are either managed services or private clouds or private SaaS solutions. Being so heavily involved in that, it has led us to be one of the leading agencies in developing sound policies and sound packages for FedRAMP. FedRAMP has recognized that. They have had us they have had us attend their FedRAMP liaison calls and brief to other agencies on our success stories and our shortcomings and how we got to where we are today. That actually led to several agencies reaching out to us, asking us how to go about setting up a continuous monitoring program, or how do they get over certain roadblocks that they're experiencing with their vendors. FedRAMP has many times told us how appreciative they are of that, and that we're so great. So our next accomplishment is our enhancement in our architecture governance. What we did is we were having some issues with the vendors where we weren't getting any consistent network topology drawings. And so what we did is we established an ABD, which is an architecture boundary diagram. That is a 6 to 7 page template that outlines how the drawings should be, what should be included in it. Should it be encryption, the external connections, internal connections. And we found it to be really useful for all of our cloud products that we're using. Internally, we shared it, and we're talking amongst others within our organization, and we're thinking about making it maybe a more widely used template within the organization. But we also took the opportunity to share this with the FedRAMP program office, and they loved it. And what they did is they took it and asked if they can remove the VA headers and utilize it as a more federal document instead of just a VA agency document. And what that did is it provides a lot of consistency. If you're not familiar with FedRAMP, it's a do once, use many type of scenario, right? Where one agency is going to come in, perform an assessment and grant an authorization, and other agencies can come in behind that and utilize it. So having a consistent package in a neat and a clean manner where others can leverage those systems with little rework is really what we're looking for. And as I mentioned before, FedRAMP looks at us as one of the leading agencies in doing that. And so I would love to share with you all our success stories, but I know we're limited for time. But thank you for the opportunity to present, and it was greatly appreciated.
Thank you so much, Charles. That was wonderful. Next up, we have removing barriers in the federal workplace, presented by Betsy Sirk, ACOP Industry Outreach Chairperson for NASA Section 508 Program Manager. Betsy, so great to have you here. Welcome.
Thank you so much. I'm very excited to be here to talk to you about what our submission is within the DEIA, the Promoting Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Accessibility arena. It's specifically within the federal government, but I hope what I will instill within you is that this isn't just the federal government. This is an area in which both industry and government need to partner and come together to just improve the accessibility experience overall. And as was mentioned, I'm very honored to have been appointed the chairperson of the Federal CIO Council's Accessibility Community of Practice Industry Outreach Subcommittee. That's a mouthful, but I'll tell you in a minute just a little bit of what that is about and why that was started. And within NASA, I direct our digital accessibility programs and also specifically serve as the Goddard Space Flight Center's Section 508 Program Manager. I'm also honored to be supported by my home organization, which is the Agency Procurement Office, and specifically the NASA Solutions for Enterprise-Wide Procurement Program Management Office. So just thanks to that, it's a really good collaboration in this space to promote accessible technology. The next slide, please, and thank you again to ATARC, a shout out. NASA doesn't easily let us use Zoom, so we often can't present charts. So thank you for standing up and helping in this venue. What is this Accessibility Community of Practice team? Well, it's actually a joint venture established by both the federal CIO and Chief Acquisition Officer councils. And why? To really focus on the federal government's implementation of Section 508 of the Rehabilitation Act. Hopefully all of you here today have heard of that act. It's been around, specifically Section 508. It went into effect over 21 years ago. But in a nutshell, what that act does in this particular section requires that federal agencies buy, build, and implement and use the most accessible information and communication technology that's available that meets its needs. And so when the ACOP was established, there are three big focus areas. One is this industry outreach acquisitions area that I chair. There's another whole committee, subcommittee that focuses on education. And then there's another on best practices, just promoting what the best in accessibility is across the government and also to industry. So what does our team do? Well, we are really solely out to help promote industry's understanding of this, because you may notice this is a law that addresses federal government's requirement to do something. It doesn't specifically say industry, you shall do that. There are other rules and laws in the Americans with Disabilities Act and things about websites that obviously affect industry in different ways. But here, what we're relying on is industry's understanding of what the federal government needs, and then also what the public needs. And the more that they understand and are aware of how accessible their technology is, the better off we all are. So I'm pleased to chair this current team that has this one major accomplishment that I'll get to within just a couple of minutes. And our team members that are, I believe, at least 2 or 3 are on the call today. Antonio Haile Selassie from NASA, who's my right-hand person and an IT accessibility specialist. Our amazing, stellar former intern at the agency level, Aishwarya Krishna Kumar, who continues to be a NASA Pathways intern while in grad school at the Johnson Space Center. So welcome, Aishwarya. And Ellen Dahl is finishing up her time at the University of Maryland College Park and will go on to do great things with not only her accessibility, but all of her related computer science experience. Next slide, please. Why does digital accessibility matter? Okay. You know, I want to bring this home for people a little bit. I saw a lot of pretty pictures. You're not going to see a lot of pretty pictures in these slides for one good reason. While it's not impossible to make pretty pictures fully accessible, I bet you most of the presentation materials would not be able to be read, understood, digested by anybody who was using assistive technology, especially visually. I mean, we just let that sink in. Accessibility is about including everyone. We talk about inclusion. We talk about diversity and equity. Honestly, if it's not accessible, you can't even get to inclusion. So it's not just the technology we buy, build, and implement. It's what we create within the federal government and what we create with our industry partners. So just be thinking about your behaviors and how you communicate stuff about your successes, and say to yourself, how will this information reach every audience, especially those who use assistive technology? And I listed this Gartner prediction, which happened a couple of years ago, is very significant because a lot of people, especially in the C-suite, look at what are Gartner's top strategic predictions associated with IT. And for the first time ever, I believe it was number 2. They were predicting that the number of people with disabilities, or I don't even like to say that term because it's just people who use assistive technology. They were predicting that they will triple because of these advances, many of which were actually alluded to or talked about in these former presentations. AI and emerging technologies, they enable people to engage in the workforce who weren't able to engage before. They reduce barriers to access. So there's a huge untapped talent pool, and inaccessible technology hurts employees and organizations. So we don't just do this because it's a law. We're passionate about this because it's the right thing to do. We need to get our people, our employees, our public access to the information. They need to be in a society. They're entitled to that, but we should be thinking about it upfront. Accessibility, should not be afterthought. It should be at the beginning. And what's my big pitch here? It's a win-win situation for industry and government, because not only does, if industry wants to sell to the government, it opens the door for us to be able to purchase the IT if they consider and even just disclose their accessibility, even if they're not fully accessible. It also allows industry to understand how to reach a broader consumer base. And everything I've heard talk about customer experience, patient experience, this is the way you improve your customer experiences when you think about accessibility. The next slide, please. So, why is it that we want to remove these barriers and focus on industry as opposed to doing all of the other wonderful efforts to help agencies understand what they need to do? Well, bottom line, government buys more IT than it builds. Now, I'm with NASA, an organization that tends to build hardware and software and run missions and all of that, but we still buy more IT, and across the government, we rely on others to develop the products that we're implementing. So what do? Well, we look at the federal acquisition processes and say, hey, here's a key opportunity. Since we're buying this, let's ensure that accessibility is considered up front. If we do it that way, it's going to save us a lot of money in the long run. But where does the industry piece come in? Well, we have worked tirelessly because I think many of you understand unfunded or underfunded mandates. And unfortunately, while this law has been in place for 20 years, it's really not high on the minds of people setting up the budgets. It's an over guideline, it carries over. People say it's another duty is assigned. It really hasn't been given its due. We say it's just as important as security, and you wouldn't really get away with half funding something in security. Maybe people will disagree because they do need more funding in that area as well. But what we need to do to ensure that we are guiding industry to understand and develop the most accessible technology possible. Because what they have, it improves the entire ecosystem of IT solutions. So let's get to this amazing team, very small team. And again, we are focused government-wide and industry-wide. So what have we done? Well, we've met personally with over 500 companies, and most are small business. You talk about promoting your small or specialized or niche IT product businesses to guide them in the development of what we call accessibility conformance reports. Now, the IT Industry Council came up with a template called a voluntary product to help guide companies in capturing and recording the information against standards within Section 508 that define what accessibility is. The issue is, how do we get these reports? How do we get industry to want to do it when there's so much misinformation out there? They just don't know. The next slide, please. So we've conducted all of these, just the next slide whenever we're ready. Thank you so much. We listen to people. We listened to, reached out to us and said, I'm dealing with company XYZ and they do not think that this applies to them. What do we do? Well, our interns painfully sat through a lot of meetings. We're trying to have positive interactions. And by the way, over 90% of the companies with whom we interact do produce a valid accessibility conformance report. Remember, these are the reports that enable people to implement this across the board. Well, we did this and we want to get to that 100%. So our interns said, we're hearing the same questions being asked. Why don't we put together a guide? Now, we had thought about this, but we really honestly don't have the resources to do that. And our interns did an amazing first crack at the concept and actually implementing a navigable guide. It's fully accessible. So, you know, we have to practice what we preach here. So it's a PDF that you can navigate through. You can just read the frequently asked questions. You can get to, I already know what an accessibility conformance report is. How do I get to the nitty gritty of filling it out? This guide, it's not been quite a year since it's been rolled out. We have it displayed on various acquisition vehicles. I'm giving you the NASA SOUP web address at the bottom in the slides when you get them, but it's also on section 508.gov, which is maintained by GSA as the program directors of accessibility across the government. So we've already heard back from companies that this is really helping them. If they have questions remaining after the guide, they can reach out to us. But this is the way that we can look to improve the whole ecosystem. So this isn't just specific to one acquisition vehicle, although NASA SOUP, with those of us in SOUP, made SOUP easy to just click a button if you're a customer to say, please provide this report at the time we get a quote for the product. We really want every acquisition vehicle in the government to be able to do that because we want to promote our customers having easy access to these reports once they're created. We're in partnership with GSA to do a lot of government-wide initiatives that will help customers get to this. But bottom line, this team and this guide, they are moving the needle. And I don't care how slow, it's just got to go in that right direction. And right now, as a result of this guide, we are getting more and more companies buying in and producing these reports that allow us in the federal government to follow the law, but more importantly, to enable our people. Because again, if you take away anything from this, please, no, there can't be any inclusion without accessibility. And thank you so much for your time.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Betsy. We really appreciate it. Up next, we have Gabriel Nimbus Derivative LTAC presented by Greg Bew, the Division Chief Integration and Data Division ARC Cyber. Over to you, Greg. Greg, you are muted.
All right, how do you have me now?
Looks good, sounds good.
Okay, awesome. Hey, really appreciate the opportunity to talk to everybody today. First and foremost, we didn't name the nominations. So Gabriel Nimbus, Derivative LTAC, my apologies. So what we wanted to talk to you really was about our cyber's approach to enabling data-centric operations and how we're using DevSecOps to really drive the Army forward. So I'll kind of show you where those words of Gabriel Nimbus and LTAC fit. Fortunately, since this is only 5 to 7 minutes, at least the Marines went before to talk about chaos. So our big data platform is based off the same technology. So hopefully you have a greater understanding. So what I plan to discuss here is really explain really quick what big data platform is and Gabriel Nimbus, and then how we started rapidly generating capabilities on that. And then, okay, great, how we took it to the edge and created this tactical data platform. And really, I just flew back this morning from Project Convergence 22, where we implemented this within less than a year. So excited to show you this. So there's a big data platform named Big Data Platform. And I always thank DISA for naming our dog. So it makes it very hard to explain to people that we have a big data platform named Big Data Platform. It's a government open source platform that's deployed throughout the services. So it's on NIPR, SIPR, and JWICs connected by a cross domain. The Army's is Gabriel Nimbus, the Marines is Chaos, as they briefed earlier. And that ecosystem fits together into something that United States Cyber Command calls Unified Platform. So the idea was, hey, let's fuse all of our data from our mission spaces together. Let's make it searchable between each other in this kind of federated and distributed manner, and then enable operations based off applications and analytics on top of the data versus stovepipe systems just doing one piece or another. So kind of you got the visualization on the bottom left of how kind of the unified platform comes together. Admittedly, that's an older graphic because the Marines are shaded in completely now. The Air Force is live on SIPR. And the Navy is standing up their Spinnaker on NIPR today. The bottom right is just a kind of an ops floor view of, okay, it's great, I'm talking about this data thing, but what does it do? Well, we created applications that help us merge threat, network, and mission data together to enable us to defend the network. So, a quick drawing that's DevSecOps at the platform and application level. So a lot of our original work was based on, hey, how do we use agile processes to create things that can go on this global instance, be deployed in unified platform or on Gabriel Nimbus. And we've modernized over time. We've done very well on this, but that's not the point of this brief. Since 2016 or so, driving on creating this platform and continuing to modernize it and make sure that it's a best-in-class capability. And as we were able to kind of use DevSecOps to help progress the platform, as we got the platform more mature, we were able to use it to deliver more visualizations, applications, analytics on top of the data at the data layer. Well, that was great, but it still took kind of professional coders, professional developers. So we created a data science capability. So as formerly the lead data scientist for Army Cyber Command, my frustration was, okay, I'm building this data platform because I can't do data science without data, but then I don't have data tools. Even though they might be accredited to go onto my system, I have the challenge of the local network employee that's like, ooh, this looks like code. I don't think you can have this on your computer, and they won't install it. So we took the data science tools, specifically in this case, a Jupyter Lab environment, and made it into a containerized application and deployed it on top of the data platform as an app. Then we created a capability that allows those notebooks to be compiled and installed as their own apps. So without going to an outside source or having to go through another accrediting authority, you build the applications based off resources that are already in the platform, you deploy them within the platform, and they can go to any of our platforms. The one thing I'll say here that's fairly interesting based off the last brief is we actually integrated LaTeX. So if you've ever done any scholarly work, it's kind of, I'll say it's a paper writing program to oversimplify. We integrated LaTeX, so the outputs of analytics applications, any of the visualizations can be outputted as PowerPoint slideshows or any type of accessible format. So it can embed the right ARIA tags, et cetera, to make it so that folks can use the outputs of applications and analytics, but also we can save a lot of staff hours. I don't know if it's the same everywhere else out there in the federal government. We probably spend more time making slides than we do doing the rest of our job. We've kind of automated that away here. Well, so how does that fit with this LTAC thing, Leap Tactical? Well, we're like, hey, we have this unified platform. We're able to connect systems, do this distributed computing. Let's flip that upside down. How do we reach that down to the tactical edge? How do we take this enterprise body of knowledge? How do we learn on it? And how do we push it to the edge to enable our forces forward, not only in cybersecurity, but also in other mission spaces to enable decision dominance, right? We want this information advantage, but we have to have somewhere to put the information. With Army Cyber Command, we said, hey, cyber data is just data. It doesn't have to have that qualifier in front. We're dealing with something like 14 petabytes of data. We have a system that can handle it, but it's also able to be miniaturized. Let's put that at the edge. So that's really where we started making this Leap Tactical. So this it gives us a chance to enable true data-centric operations. So we're able to take information from multiple domains, fuse it together, make it accessible via an API, so we can provide that information advantage to get towards decision dominance. And the importance, I think, of this API is what we're able to do is we're able to support the legacy systems or the today as is systems by pulling information, but we're also able to provide an environment for what I'll call thinner web apps to answer the 50% of the questions that'll probably only be asked once. So we're able to fuse this data together into the system and provide value. So now my diagram from before gets a little bit more complicated, but what happens is what we're saying is any capability made by any vendor or government source can be put in this app repository and deployed as a container in this cloud native environment that is Leap Tactical. So Leap Tactical, you can put it on any infrastructure, whether it's in the cloud or on premise, a laptop to 600 servers like Gabriel Nimbus, and it installs these core services, security layers, different federation capabilities, but probably most importantly, this API that allows access to the data. So we're going to normalize it and clean it and translate it and reduce the complexity and give everyone one authoritative API to reference. So then if you can see like the Alex section there, that's our data science environment. It can deploy its own tools. We can put our Army command post computing environment in there. And I just listed another application. So we're able to extend this to where we support DevSecOps for kind of more mature developers, but we also support ad hoc analytics for folks that can write one-line scripts or do low-code, no-code building and deploy it on any infrastructure. The cool thing in our mind is all of these systems tied together in a mesh automatically when they detect each other. So they all end up getting access to our two-way cross domain that allows us to move information up and down. So in less than 1 year, what were we able to do? Well, Project Convergence 21, we took our larger system and we're like, hey, Army, you should consider this for our data fabric / data mesh solution. That's a whole philosophical debate over what the right word is, but there will be a new one tomorrow. So we'll just skip that subject. So what we're able to do is say, okay, we kind of fought off the competition, incorporated some S&T things and said, okay, yeah, the cyber system can do this. So next year at Project Convergence 22, let's deploy this. Okay, so I just came back yesterday and we had instances deployed in Microsoft Azure, in AWS. We created a hybrid cloud node to communicate to our on-prem nodes more as a safety thing for experimentation, because those ones on the left are production environments. We're able to connect to data on NIPR, SIPR, and mission partner environment shared with 5i partners at USERPAC, at Camp Pendleton, California, at the National Training Center, at Joint Base Lewis McChord, variety of units of those places, and connect to the Air Force over there at Nellis and March Air Force Base. Now, this diagram could be a little bit more complex because all of those nodes connected to all of those other nodes, and the Air Force actually cut off their communications to the cloud that they had baked into their system, and they were able to use our routes to get back to their cloud through the way that this technology distributes its communication paths. So we had a multi-cloud, hybrid, multi-fabric, multi-service data mesh created in less than a year by miniaturizing our technologies, deploying it, and using DevSecOps principles, and really a bunch of talented soldiers, civilians, and contractor support that all kind of rode together to make this happen. Not a small effort. So one last thing on this picture, you'll see the different colored blocks. The colored blocks are the classification levels of the data. And at each of those places, they didn't necessarily have that classification of equipment, but with the tagging of the information and correct portion marking, they had access to the highest level of information that they had a network for. So if they had SIPR, they could see all of their information from all other locations, whether they had that network or not. And then vice versa, if you were on NIPR, but there was something on SIPR that wasn't really classified, you could see that as well. So enabling data access to drive on the actual ability to answer commanders' questions. So I guess we're not doing questions, but I have a mandatory question slide here. So thank you for your time. Really appreciate the consideration, and very impressed to hear everybody else's presentations. So thanks for also the opportunity just to listen in.
Thank you, Greg. It was great having you here. We really appreciate it. Up next, we have NOAA NMFS OCIO Permit Information Management System presented by Elton Edinburgh, the OCIO Project Manager at NOAA. Elton, over to you.
Hi, I don't think it's letting me share my video because it said the host has stopped.
I can see your screen though, but you just might want to put it in presentation mode.
All right, so I'm going to talk to you a little bit. When you think of NOAA fisheries, everyone probably thinks of permitting. So I'm going to talk to you about a permitting system we just deployed to support our Southeast region, which is mainly the state of Florida. So we had to upgrade our old legacy system, which was end of life on Cold Fusion, and we decided to use a low-code platform because we needed to get it up and running in about a year, and we did. And so that was kind of the strategy behind the application and what we wanted to do. We really focused on the end stakeholder for this application. Being IT folks, we tend to sometimes look at ourselves and how we wanted to use it, but we really had a great partner in this. And we really took it down to the docks, as we say, with no pun intended, to the fishing industry and how best they would utilize this system. The biggest thing we wanted to solve here with this system was time. You know, time is money, and we found out they spent over an hour trying to do an application, and we really wanted to reduce that. So these were some of the goals right off the bat that we wanted to reach the end user and make their life easier, because we all don't like to do applications. I don't think anyone on this call is like excited to do an application at any point. Through kind of the slide on there for kind of the approach we took, I talked a little bit about the top A, which is the solution, and the human-centered design. We really wanted to focus in on the pain points, not for the administrative side, but the end user side, for and foremost, because this is really, we consider it their system, right? Even though it's our system, we consider that this is something they use, and we wanted to make it as easy as possible. So here's some of the metrics that I'll want to go over on what we did. So like I said, some of the things is when they were doing an application every year, you know, we get roughly 22,000 applications, over 7,000 users, external users, and it was taking them over an hour to do an application, and it wouldn't save from where they left off. And so from their end, that's a big issue, right? And on our end, we would just get incomplete applications. And at any point in time in our old application system, we would have 300 to 400 applications in backlog that we're trying to get processed, completed, reach out to them for incomplete information. So right now with the new workflow and new solution, you can see it takes some of them about 4 minutes to complete an application. And when I try to describe this, if anyone of you have ever used TurboTax and the wizard, that's kind of what the system is. It really drives you to complete an application without any errors in a specific way, in the most efficient amount of time. So reduced it from hours to minutes. And currently right now, for the last 3-4 months, we've had 0 backlogs of applications. So I put kind of a lot of our successes here from old to new that I've already covered. Another big thing, not on the stakeholder side, but from our office side, from the NOAA side, is if any of you all know where Florida is, it usually gets hit by hurricanes and weather-related stuff. So before, when we were on-prem, we would have to go shut those down anytime there's a warning. Currently, if you know what happened in Florida about a month ago, we did not lose a minute of sleep with our new solution, with a cloud-based solution, and not having to worry about it on-prem. And the other thing we did is we used pay.gov integration, which is huge for us on our side, is we don't have to process checks manually and mail to us. So those are some of the big wins on our end, and as well as the stakeholder side. I think that's all I have.
Great. Thank you so much, Elton. That was awesome. Next up, we have our last presenter today, the Artificial Intelligence Use Case Publications from the Office of the Chief AI Office for the HHS, presented by Greg Singleton. Greg, welcome.
Thank you, Kirsten, and thank you, Kim. Give me a second to get my screen shared.
Sure, take your time.
All right, is that working for you?
Looks great.
Okay. Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Greg Singleton. I'm the Chief Artificial Intelligence Officer for the Department of Health and Human Services, and presenting on behalf of my office, as well as my colleague, Sonia Basarich, who's the program lead for AI. She's on travel today, so not able to be with us on this one. But I'm going to tell you about our AI use case inventory and publication, and how that's crucial for promoting transparency on how we use artificial intelligence across the department. There we go. All right. So talking about first kind of what is HHS, some background. So HHS, we have 11 operating divisions, 8 agencies, 3 public health service agencies, a number of different staff divisions. But it's a massive agency. We had roughly $2.2 trillion in spending in FY22, roughly a quarter, or more than a quarter of the federal budget. And our mission, broadly everywhere, is to enhance the health and well-being of Americans, make sure they've got health care, health services, good information. We have mission sets that go from birth to old age. Within that space, our office, we're here to work with academia, industry, and government to use AI tools to solve new problems that we have, or previously unsolvable problems, to advance the health and well-being of the American people. It's a fun mission. It's a good area to be operating in. But then there's also this component of using these tools in ways that they are trustworthy and reflect the values that we have as a department. So how do we do that? Our office, we focus on implementing our AI strategy for the department, work on AI governance for the department. We coordinate AI responses and applications to other things across the area, as well as working with the health sector, the ecosystem, on innovations and further development. So on to the use cases and what we did here. So this all came out of Executive Order 13960, promoting the use of trustworthy artificial intelligence in the federal government. And you might say, well, why trustworthy artificial intelligence? And the key here is there's a certain amount of apprehension about letting computers make decisions about things that are very critical to your care. Remember, our department does reimbursements for care, provides actual care to people, looks at drug development, drug discovery. We want to make sure that if we are using computers to make these decisions, we feel good about those decisions. People aren't nervous about them. They reflect our values as a nation. They reflect our values as a department. One of the ways to do that is White House issued this executive order, had all these principles for using AI in government. They said, oh, by the way, we want you to index and do an inventory of all your AI use cases as an agency, and then put them out there on the website. Put them right out there so the public can see it. So, the public can say, what AI tools is the federal government using? And they can go see, are they comfortable with it? Do they feel good about it? Are the tools, are they scary, robot dogs with guns, or are they tools to help identify counterfeit drugs or things like that? And so this executive order required us to make this index, assess whether or not our use cases were trustworthy and consistent with the order, and then make this inventory available to the public. So we were the first agency to get those out there publicly. We put them out on our website. So this is the HHS CIO artificial intelligence. We've got 2 components here. We have the raw use cases, so about 55 use cases that we're able to share, so folks can go in and look at them. And then we also we pulled out, I think, 8 specific examples to help tell the story and provide more detail to people that want to understand, okay, what are these AI applications? What are they doing? How are they benefiting me? And so I'm going to go through one example here. So this is kind of a cool use case. FDA, Food and Drug Administration, has responsibilities for regulation of drugs, identifying safety, efficacy, as well as detecting counterfeits. And counterfeits can be hard to detect, and they have a number of different inspectors that have to look at samples of drugs and figure out, is this the real thing? Is this counterfeit? Can this harm somebody? And so FDA used AI tools with multiple different types of light sources to take pictures in multiple wavelengths of drugs to identify whether or not things were legitimate drug samples or if they're counterfeit. Typically, they had inspectors that need to look at many, tens of hundreds of pictures, can take them many minutes to do a detailed inspection. They're able to deploy a tool to rapidly, within seconds, provide a visual detection and visual discrimination of things that might be suspect that could be sent on for further use. Perfect example of using AI to advance the federal mission, doing some good, and something that people can feel comfortable with in terms of the government applications. Broadly, across the department, we're able to use this inventory to look at where we are applying AI tools and identify places where different offices can collaborate and coordinate and say, hey, who's doing this well? Who has already looked at this challenge? Who's applying these tools towards their mission set? Broadly, from the initial use cases identified, we focus on kind of mission data analysis. A lot of areas that we can use chatbots for interaction and answering, roughly 80 to 95% of people's questions. Categorization, discrimination, making decisions on routing, security tools, a lot of applications there, as well as search. But what we are finding is a lot of our department's use of AI tools are in mission spaces and not as much in the operational logistics management areas where RPAs could be really applicable. And so we have identified that as an area to improve our activities and improve governmental efficiencies. So it's just an area we wanted to share in terms of, we've done these use case analyses. It's important towards our mission and for the federal mission to enhance collaboration, transparency, both across the department and outside to the public, as well as keeps us compliant with executive orders and other areas of federal law. So we're going to continue building on this effort, continue with our data collection, analyzing use cases, and getting the information out there. You can see these resources on our website, as well as my email address is here, where you can reach out. But I want to thank Kirsten, Kim, ATARC, and GITEC for the nomination. So thank you all for listening.
Of course, thank you. And thank you to all of our presenters. We will be announcing the awards, the winners at our December 6th award reception at the Marriott Metro Center. We really look forward to hopefully seeing you all there. And before that, we have a full day of AI and Data Summit next week on November 17th. We'll be hearing from our top thought leaders in the federal government. So please go ahead and register for this in-person event on our website. All right, thanks everyone. Have a great rest of your week, and we'll see you next time.